Chapter 4965. Thank you for helping me out, Brother Zhuang. Otherwise, I'm afraid I would have died today. Lin Yi cupped his hands in gratitude. He could still think of a way to trick Chang Minggui, but against someone like Chang Tianwen, even the most exquisite of schemes would be useless. Chang Tianwen could kill you with just a finger, so what was the use of schemes? Brother Lin, what are you talking about? With our relationship, do you think I'd just sit back and do nothing? Zhuang Yifan waved his hand and sighed. It's a pity that I can't help you take care of Chang Minggui today. Chang Tianwen is a late-stage Earth creation expert. After all, even if I could defeat him, I wouldn't dare to kill him. Otherwise, if he were to fight to the death, all of you would be in trouble. I can't take that risk. It's fine. I'm already very grateful that Brother Zhuang could help me survive today. Lin Yi smiled and shook his head. He was determined to leave the Eastern continent as soon as possible. If Chang Minggui and Chang Tianwen made a comeback, none of the experts he knew would be able to stop them except for Zhuang Yifan. Even the Morning Star 3 would be useless. Only by leaving the Eastern continent would they be able to survive. Yes, but you don't have to worry too much. I've already sent word to Chang Tianwen. If he dares to touch you, I'll personally go to the Mystic Sea and fight him for another 300 rounds. I believe he won't do anything in the short term. However, it's hard to say for Chang Minggui. He's arrogant and unruly, and he's suffered a great loss at your hands. I don't think he'll give up just like that. You have to be careful in the future, Zhuang Yifan reminded. Thank you, Brother Zhuang. Lin Yi nodded. At this time, Li Ren came to report that everything was ready, and they could set sail at any time. Lin Yi immediately bid farewell to Zhuang Yifan. Zhuang Yifan had wanted to ask Lin Yi to stay for a few more days, but the situation was different now. Every day that Lin Yi stayed here meant that he would be in more danger when he returned in the future, so Zhuang Yifan did not urge him to stay. Apart from that, Lin Yi had another matter to attend to, which was to bid farewell to Lu Ziyu and Huo Yudi, although Zhuang Yifan had stepped forward to vouch for them, and the reconciliation between the Morning Star and Morning Pride Academies was already set in stone. The two of them could not just follow Lin Yi to the Morning Star Academy. Moreover, Lu Ziyu was the person in charge of the Morning Pride Academy's team, and could only return after all the disciples of the Morning Pride Academy had gathered. However, according to Lin Yi's plan, after he returned to the Morning Star Academy to settle some matters, he would soon return to the Soaring Cloud Academy and the Morning Pride Academy before leaving the Eastern continent. Therefore, it wouldn't be long before they met again, so he wouldn't be too reluctant to part with Huo Yudi. Everything was ready. Under the gazes of Zhuang Yifan and the others, the Morning Star treasure ship slowly set sail amidst the low and melodious bugle call. At the same time, on the back of the ghost-eyed golden condor, Chang Minggui finally mustered up the courage to ask carefully, "Clan brother, did you fight with Zhuang Yifan?" Chang Tianwen snorted, instantly angered at the mention of this matter. He pointed at Chang Minggui's nose and said angrily, "What did you say to me before? You said that Zhuang Yifan was injured, and that it was so serious that he had to use a solid earth pill to stabilize his cultivation level. But when I fought with him just now, I found that he was in peak condition and even stronger than before. How do you explain that?" This time, he agreed to fight Zhuang Yifan on the condition that Zhuang Yifan was injured. Otherwise, he knew that he was no match for Zhuang Yifan, and he wouldn't have come all the way from the Mystic Sea region to get beaten up. This time, he was completely tricked by Chang Minggui. "Calm down, clan brother. I didn't think of this either. Zhuang Yifan tried every possible way to get my wife to help him refine the solid earth pill. Who would have thought that the Lin brat was also a mystic first-rank alchemist? Zhuang Yifan already obtained the solid earth pill from him, and his injuries suddenly healed. Chang Minggui said weakly with his head drooped. Humph, luckily this is his territory, and Zhuang Yifan was afraid that I would destroy his alliance branch. Otherwise, he would have been in deep trouble this time. You didn't even get such important information. You can't do anything right, but you're more than good at spoiling things. Chang Tianwen glared at him with dissatisfaction. Calm down, clan brother. This time, it was indeed my fault. I've caused you trouble. Chang Minggui quickly apologized. Seeing that Chang Tianwen's expression had eased a little, he carefully said, in the end, this time, it was Lin Yi's fault. If he didn't refine the solid earth pill for Zhuang Yifan, how could Zhuang Yifan be your opponent? According to what you've said, that brat really is a talent. He's a mystic first-rank alchemist at such a young age, and he can even defeat a mountain-opening early-stage expert at the mystic ascendant early stage. This brat is extraordinary. If we don't nip him in the bud, you'll be in big trouble in the future. Chang Tianwen nodded. Clan brother, you're right. That's why I don't think this matter can be dragged on. But it looks like that brat will return to Morning Star Academy soon. Should we chase after him and kill him? Chang Minggui suggested. That's your own business. What are you talking to me about? Chang Tianwen glanced at him as if he had nothing to do with it. Ugh, I need you to help me with this. I can't handle it alone. Even though Morning Star Academy doesn't have a master like Zhuang Yifan, the 3 Morning Star leaders are not to be trifled with. I have no chance of winning against the 3 of them alone. I need you to suppress them. Otherwise, we can only watch that brat Lin Yi get away with it. Chang Minggui begged. If you can't even handle such a small matter, what use do you have? Chang Tianwen looked at him and said in the same tone, I can still help you deal with Zhuang Yifan. He's an earth-opening late-stage expert, after all. You want me to lower myself to deal with a mystic ascendant early-stage brat? Did you get kicked in the head by a donkey? You may be shameless, but I'm not. But Chang Minggui wanted to argue. After all, he didn't have the confidence to face the 3 Morning Star leaders alone, no matter how arrogant he was. No buts. This matter ends here. As for whether or not you can kill that Lin Yi, that's your own business. It has nothing to do with me. Do you understand what I mean? Chang Tianwen frowned. Chang Minggui choked for a moment, then finally nodded. Since Chang Tianwen was determined not to help him deal with Lin Yi, he could only rely on himself. No matter what, he had to find an opportunity to try. Otherwise, he would not be satisfied. 3 days later, Lin Yi and the others returned to Morning Star Academy without any incident. Ling Yuanqing led the higher-ups of the academy to put on the grandest display to welcome them. Among them, Lin Yi was undoubtedly the protagonist. Chapter 4966. If it was in the past, even if Ling Yuanqing wasn't angry at such a terrible result, he wouldn't be in the mood to personally welcome them. But this time was different. Although the result of the trial wasn't ideal, because of Lin Yi, the benefits that Morning Star Academy received were much greater than the path of the tyrant trial. Needless to say, just the fact that Morning Star Academy was able to sit at the main table at the celebration banquet was already a huge credit to Lin Yi. This meant that Morning Star Academy would receive the support of Zhuang Yifan, and becoming a super golden class academy was only a matter of time. This was something that Ling Yuanqing hadn't been able to do for decades. Other than that, the news of Lin Yi asking Zhuang Yifan to speak up for the 2 academies had spread as well. While it was inevitable that there would be all sorts of discussions within the academies, it was still a great achievement no matter what. Anyone with foresight could see that this was a win-win situation for both academies, and it was a rare occasion for both academies. Master Lin, you've worked hard this time. On behalf of everyone, I thank you for everything you've done for Morningstar Academy. You'll always be our benefactor. Ling Yuanqing said, emotionally, Dean Ling, you're too kind. I've been troubling the Academy for so long. It's only right that I do something for the Academy. Lin Yi said humbly, Master Lin, I have a presumptuous request. I'd like you to be the honorary dean of Morningstar Academy. Would you be willing? Ling Yuanqing suddenly suggested. This. Lin Yi, Wang Xinyan, and Huang Xiaotao looked at each other. There were quite a few people here who were related to him. It wouldn't be a bad thing to have the title of an honorary dean. He hesitated for a moment before nodding. Since Dean Ling is so kind, then it would be impolite of me to refuse. All right, I've already prepared a celebration banquet. It's to celebrate Master Lin's achievements, and also to celebrate the new honorary dean. Master Lin, please. Ling Yuanqing said immediately, Dean Ling, please. Lin Yi nodded with a smile. He could clearly see that Ling Yuanqing's attitude had become more polite this time. He felt a little helpless, but he knew that this was unavoidable. After all, even someone like Zhuang Yifan had to treat him as an equal. How could Ling Yuanqing continue to be arrogant? Otherwise, even if he didn't object, Zhuang Yifan's expression would probably be ugly. What comforted Lin Yi, however, was that the divine nun of the East Sea's attitude towards him hadn't changed at all. After all, she was a peaceful monk and also Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao's teacher. If even the divine nun of the East Sea changed her attitude, Lin Yi would really be in trouble. At the celebration banquet, other than Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao, the three powerhouses of the Morningstar Academy and Qing Danzi were at the same table with Lin Yi. Li Run, as the leader of the libation, was also at the last seat. He didn't have the right, but he had done a great service, so it was a reward. After 3 rounds of drinking, Lin Yi suddenly asked Qing Danzi, who was sitting on his left, Qing Danzi, have you solved the problem you encountered with alchemy? It's solved. It's completely solved. The last few times I've refined pills, it hasn't happened again. Master, you really have a good eye. I've learned a lot, Qing Danzi said excitedly. He couldn't be blamed for being so excited. He had only followed Lin Yi's instructions and changed a small habit, and his success rate immediately increased by several times. It was equivalent to decades of hard work. Having an expert to guide, you really made a difference. He was originally the chief alchemist of the academy, and now that the problem was solved, he could become one of the best among the 7th-rank alchemists. His next step was to look forward to becoming a mystic alchemist. Although there was a huge gap between a yellow-rank alchemist and a mystic alchemist, even if he reached the peak of the 7th rank, it didn't mean that he had the confidence to become a mystic alchemist. But this was the most basic prerequisite. If he couldn't even reach the peak of the 7th rank, then he couldn't even think about becoming a mystic alchemist. But now, Qing Danzi at least had the qualifications to fantasize about it. This in itself was a gratifying improvement. That's good. In the future, concentrate on practicing and simulating the alchemy fire of various elements. This is the most important basic skill to become a mystic alchemist. You can't be careless. This was Lin Yi's own experience from refining the solid earth pill a few days ago. Although he couldn't share the godly armament cauldron, he still had to teach him what he could. Yes, thank you, Master, for your teachings. This disciple will remember it. Qing Danzi was overjoyed. Although he had long believed that Lin Yi was a mystic alchemist, he never thought that he would be able to receive Lin Yi's wholehearted teachings so quickly. This really made him overjoyed. Before, Lin Yi's casual words had solved the problem that had troubled him for many years. Now, his words were full of gold. It had to be said that When he desperately wanted to be Lin Yi's disciple, it seemed unbelievably impulsive to others. But now it seemed that it was absolutely a wise and farsighted move. Oh, right. Is there an alchemist called Zheng Dongsheng in the academy? Lin Yi asked. Zheng Dongsheng? Qing Danzi was a little surprised that Lin Yi would suddenly ask about this person, but he still answered truthfully, "Yes, there is such a person. He is our academy's #2 alchemist. He is also a 7th rank alchemist. It's just that he recently went out to visit his relatives, so he's not in the academy. So that's how it is." Lin Yi thought to himself, no wonder he had never seen this person before. Otherwise, if Zheng Dongsheng was really in the academy, he would have already come to pay his respects. After all, even the chief alchemist, Qing Danzi, had become his disciple, let alone a 2nd-rank alchemist like him. "Master, do you have any problems? Do you want me to find someone to call him back?" Qing Danzi asked. He was the chief alchemist and could be considered the boss of all the alchemists in the academy. Even Zheng Dongsheng had to listen to his orders. Although they were both 7th-rank alchemists, their alchemy abilities differed greatly. Qing Danzi was at least 3 Zheng Dongshengs, otherwise he would not have been able to sit firmly in his position as the chief alchemist. "That's not necessary. I was just casually asking." Lin Yi waved his hand nonchalantly. With his current position, he could make Zheng Dongsheng suffer with just one word, but Lin Yi wasn't that domineering. First, Qin Yu's matter was related to Zheng Tianguang. As Zheng Tianguang's father, Zheng Dongsheng was at most not strict enough to discipline his son. Chapter 49-67. Oh, Qing Danzi nodded thoughtfully and didn't ask any further. "Qing Danzi, I'll be leaving the East Continent soon, so there's something I need to tell you," Lin Yi said. Qing Danzi wasn't surprised at all. In his eyes, even a mystic wouldn't be able to accommodate a god like Lin Yi, let alone a mere golden academy. A master like Lin Yi would have to be like the Dan god Zhang Liju, a dragon that never showed its head or tail. That was the style of a master. "Master, you're talking about the Hongkongers, right?" "No need to worry. I'll cooperate with shopkeeper Chai. I don't dare say much about other things, but in terms of high-grade elixirs, I can guarantee that no one in Morningstar City can beat him." Qing Danzi promised confidently. He indeed had this confidence. Even without Lin Yi's guidance, he was still the chief elixir refiner, let alone now. "All right, I'll have to trouble you with this." Lin Yi smiled and continued, "But that's not what I need to tell you. There's something else I need to tell you. I have a friend here called Qin Yu, and she was bullied before. She doesn't have a strong background, so I want you to take care of her." "Yes, master." Qing Danzi agreed without hesitation, and after thinking for a while, he said, "Then do you want me to warn Zheng Dongsheng?" After all, they were both smart people, and although Lin Yi didn't say it explicitly, he could guess that the bullying of Qin Yu had something to do with Zheng Dongsheng, or else Lin Yi wouldn't have asked this question. "No need. You just need to take care of her. Don't be distracted by these unnecessary things. Work hard to become a mystic refiner." Lin Yi waved his hand and added, "Qin Yu is already at the early stages of profound ascension, and she won't be staying in Morningstar Academy for too long. Besides, Xian Yen and Xiao Tao will be helping her by her side. You just have to spread the news, and there shouldn't be any trouble." "Yes, I understand." Qing Danzi nodded. After settling matters with Qing Danzi, Lin Yi bade farewell to the 3 Morningstar powerhouses. Ling Yuan Qing and the others tried their best to persuade him to stay, but they also knew that Lin Yi had been targeted by Chang Minggui. Indeed, it was not convenient for him to stay for long, so they did not insist on him staying. They only asked Lin Yi to visit the Morningstar Academy when he was free. No matter what, he was still an honorary dean. In addition, Ling Yuanqing also gave Lin Yi a great benefit. That was the quota for the Academy's disciples. According to what he said, Lin Yi, as the honorary dean, could directly recommend disciples to the Morning Star Academy. This was a huge power in the Academy. For the sake of a spot to become a disciple of the East Continent Academy, the people outside would do anything to get it. It was not like Lin Yi had not seen the fiery scene of the Morning Star Academy's disciple selection. Ling Yuanqing, giving him this power, meant that he could easily send people to the Morning Star Academy in the future. Of course, the number of spots that would eventually be handed over to Lin Yi would definitely be very limited. Even if it was a disciple recommended by Lin Yi, he would still have to go through the final round of evaluation by the 3 Morning Star powerhouses. It was obviously impossible for ordinary Tom, Dick, or Harry to sneak in and waste cultivation resources. However, with the relationship between Lin Yi and the 3 Morning Star powerhouses, as long as the disciples' aptitude was not too bad, the 3 Morning Star powerhouses would definitely not make things difficult for the person he personally recommended. It was basically equivalent to him making the decision himself. With regards to this, Lin Yi did not hesitate to accept it with a smile. This was equivalent to paving a ready-made stepping stone for his subordinates. Even if it was just to force his seniors to think about it in the future, he had no reason to reject it. After bidding farewell to the 3 Morning Star powerhouses, Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao accompanied Lin Yi to the Hong Merchant Association. Although there was nothing special that needed to be told, Honest Chai was still one of his people after all, and he naturally had to inform him before he left. Without a doubt, Honest Chai once again expressed his loyalty. With Lin Yi's stunning display at the Morning Star auction and his cooperation with Qing Danzi, he had now completely established a foothold in Morning Star City. In the Hong Merchant Association, he had also become a true lord, and his power and status were not to be underestimated. In the past, he did not have much say, but now he had enough qualifications to wave the flag for Hongzhong. If he could groom a few more subordinates like him in the future, the day when Hongzhong, the vice president, would forcefully enter the headquarters on Middle Island was not far away. After leaving the Hong Merchant Association, Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao followed Lin Yi all the way to the city gates. Lin Yi repeatedly urged them to stop before the 2 girls reluctantly stopped in their tracks. "I'm leaving now. You 2 take good care of yourselves. If there's a chance, go to the Morning Pride Academy to find Hui Yuri. The 3 of you must support each other when you go to the Mystic Sea region in the future. Advance and retreat together." Lin Yi instructed. "Don't worry, we know this even without you telling us." "Oh, right. When the time comes, are we going to bring your princess, Ning Xuefei, along?" Wang Xinyan looked at Lin Yi with a smile that did not seem like a smile. Lin Yi rubbed his nose awkwardly. He felt a little guilty about this matter. After all, there were so many beauties who followed him without any complaints, and they never had a clear status. Now that he was engaged to Ning Xuefei, it was really too unfair to Wang Xinyan and the other girls. However, he had no other choice in that situation. He could only think of a way to make it up to them in the future. Feifei's strength is too low. She won't be able to go to the Mystic Sea region in the short term, but it's good for you guys to get to know each other first. Lin Yi blushed. "We know." Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao saw his expression and couldn't help but smile at each other. "All right, you 2 can go back now. We'll meet again in the future. I'll be back." Lin Yi promised. Although leaving the East Continent this time was part of the plan, it was somewhat rushed because of Chang Minggue. However, it was foreseeable that he would definitely return to the East Continent in the future. After all, the average strength of the other Heaven-tier islands was much lower than the East Continent. It was not easy for a mysterious Ascension realm master like him to quickly improve. Only the East Continent, where there were many masters, was the best place to train. Yes, you said it yourself. Don't let us wait for too long." Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao wrinkled their noses at the same time, their eyes a little red. Parting was always a sad thing, and they didn't know when they'd be able to see each other again after parting this time. "I won't let you guys wait for too long, I promise." Linny nodded and said softly. He hugged Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao lightly and left under the gaze of the two girls. Chapter 4968. As he was leaving Morningstar City, Lin Yi suddenly saw two familiar figures on the city wall. They were Bao Zhuoyang and Su Kexing, who had disappeared on the way. At this time, the two of them sneakily hid on top of the city wall to watch. Su Kexing was still fine, but Bao Zhuoyang was covered in injuries and looked miserable. In order to send a message to Chang Minghui, he ended up in such a miserable state. Just thinking about it made one's heart ache. This time, they finally managed to incite such a powerful expert to deal with Lin Yi, but in the end, Lin Yi was still safe and sound. This result really made the two of them feel unlucky. Bao Zhuoyang's injuries were all in vain. However, Lin Yi had already grown to such a terrifying level. Even if they were not satisfied, what could they do? Could they find someone more ruthless than Chang Minghui to deal with Lin Yi? Fortunately, Lin Yi had finally left. This was the only good news for the two of them. Otherwise, they would have to live in fear in Morningstar City. If Lin Yi found out that they were the ones behind this, the consequences would be unimaginable. The two of them were not worried for no reason. In fact, Lin Yi had already guessed that they were behind this. After all, after the two of them mysteriously disappeared from Thunder Plain Island, Chang Minghui came to kill him. Even if they didn't notice it at the time, they would be able to figure it out later. Lin Yi glanced at the two of them with a faint smile, and then left Morningstar City. He had no intention of dealing with these two. It was not that he couldn't, but it was not necessary. In his eyes, these two were just clowns. Not only were they not a threat to him, but they were also no threat to Wang Xinyan and the others. Morningstar Academy was almost under Lin Yi's control. Not to mention a mere Bao Zhuoyang. Even his father would not be able to do anything about it. Lin Yi didn't say anything on the way, and a couple of days later, he appeared in Soaring Clouds territory. He had originally thought that it would be interesting if he met the West Mountain Almighty Being again. This was not impossible. Heretic cultivators were usually very vengeful. Since the West Mountain Almighty Being did not dare to enter Morningstar City, he might have been waiting outside. However, from the results, it seemed that Lin Yi was thinking too much. A few months had passed, and the almighty West Mountain wouldn't have been waiting outside Morningstar City for so long after entering Soaring Cloud Academy. Lin Yi quickly attracted the attention of the surrounding disciples. Although he wasn't a disciple of Soaring Cloud Academy, after experiencing the battle with Lung Rufin for half a month and the incident on the Path of the Giants, his reputation here was not any lower than Lung Rufin's. Lin Yi was speechless after being criticized like a panda in broad daylight. He had no choice but to escape into the newcomer's courtyard. He could only use butterfly microsteps to escape. But before he could speak, he's right. F***CK. Lin Yi was shocked. Without saying anything, he waved his hand, and a 5 elements, 8 trigrams murderous aura shot out. A lifelike 8 trigrams flood dragon roared and wrapped around the huge ice blade above his head. In an instant, it was crushed into pieces. Even the mountain-like blade momentum was completely offset. "Rufin, don't you recognize me?" Lin Yi looked at the person in the courtyard with a smile that wasn't a smile. "Ah, boss." Lung Rufin was shocked. After seeing Lin Yi's appearance, he couldn't help but blush. He had just noticed someone rushing into the newcomer's courtyard. He thought it was someone with bad intentions, so he chose to attack without hesitation. He didn't expect that person to be Lin E. Ruffin, your strength has improved a lot. Your attack was so fast that even I was almost hit. Fortunately, my reaction was fast enough. Linny smiled. Boss, you flatter me. My progress is really insignificant compared to yours. In just a few months, boss, you have grown to such a strong level. I heard that you can even defeat the giants of the mountain opening period. It's really a miracle. Lung Ruffin's eyes lit up. When Lin Yi was in the East Continent, Lung Ruffin basically suppressed him in all aspects. Even after fighting for half a month, Lin Yi's improvement in strength was far from obvious. In the end, he had to rely on a battle of attrition to force Lung Ruffin to admit defeat. But now, Linny easily blocked his attack. It was clear who was stronger and who was weaker. Oh, even you know about this. Linny was stunned. It's not strange. This time, the disciples who went to participate in the Road of Giants have returned. Boss, your matter has been spread widely. Besides, even if I don't go outside, I can still hear about it from here, Lung Ruffin said matter-of-factly. There are people talking about this newcomer's courtyard. Who? Lin Yi was a little surprised. It's me. Hui Yudi's voice suddenly came from inside the room. Then, two delicate figures flew over like young pigeons and threw themselves into Lin Yi's arms. Lin Yi, you're back. Ning Xuefei hugged Lin Yi and said happily, Yes, I'm back. Lin Yi stretched out his hand and rubbed her head. Then he turned to Lung Ruffin and said, I won't stay here for long. Help me find Jiang Hahai. I have something to say to him. Yes. Lung Ruffin nodded and turned to go out. Young hero Lin, the spiritual tea is ready. Please come in and have a rest. Yang Qianxue stood in the distance and greeted him. All right, thank you, Miss Yang. Linny nodded and walked into the room with Hui Yudi and Ning Xuefei. The three of them chatted while drinking tea. Speaking of which, Yudi, why are you here? Lin Yi asked with a little surprise. He had said that he would go to Morning Pride Academy to find Hui Yudi. He didn't think that she would run over to Ning Xuefei's place. Because I knew that you would come to Soaring Cloud first. So I came. Hui Yudi raised her eyebrows and smiled. Hua Sis came all the way here just to spend a little more time with you. You're touched, aren't you? Ning Xuefei giggled as she hugged Lin Yi's arm. Fei, what are you talking about? Hua Yudi's pretty face immediately turned red when she was suddenly exposed. The two of them immediately started laughing and joking around. Linny chuckled as he played with the two girls for a while, waiting for them to sit back down, panting heavily. He then asked, Right, Yudi, the thing I asked you to look into earlier, any new developments? You mean that girl from the mortal world? Hui Yudi shrugged and shook her head, helplessly. I got people to look into it again, but there's still no news. Ever since she suddenly disappeared, it's like she evaporated from the face of the earth. I can't find any clues. Chapter 4969. You don't have to worry too much. Although she was tortured a lot before, there shouldn't be any sequelae. The problem now is that we can't find her. I've already told the relevant people in the academy that if they find her, they will inform me as soon as possible. I believe that will happen sooner or later. Hui Yudi comforted him. Well, that's the only thing we can do for now. Linny nodded. By the way, Lin Yi, how long are you going to stay here this time? Ning Xuefei asked. Lin Yi couldn't bear to look at the two girls. Because of Chang Minggui, he was basically running for his life this time. Logically speaking, he couldn't stay here for long. And the sooner he left, the better. Not only would he be in danger if he stayed here, he might even drag Ning Xuefei and Hua Yudi down with him. However, the two girls had been waiting for him for so long, especially Ning Xuefei. Unlike Hua Yudi, who at least had a reunion on the Path of Giants, Ning Xuefei had waited until now to see him again. It was really cruel for them to have to leave so quickly. Can you leave tomorrow morning? Ning Shuefei took Lin Yi's arm and said coquettishly. Tomorrow morning? Lin Yi was stunned. He had thought that he would stay for at least 2 or 3 days to accompany Ning Shuefei. He didn't expect that this girl would be so understanding. He couldn't help but feel warm in his heart. Okay, I'll leave tomorrow morning. Then where are you going next? Huiyuti asked. Originally, I was going to go to your morning Pride Academy, but since you Dai, have already rushed over here, I won't make the trip. Can you help me apologize to Aunt Lu? Lin Yi smiled apologetically. She was also a considerate girl. This time, she came to Soaring Cloud Academy not because she wanted to spend more time with Ning Shuefei, but because she wanted to save time for him. Lin Yi knew that very well. Well, are you going back to the North Island next? Huiyuti continued to ask. Before going back to the North Island, I plan to go to the Middle Island first. Lin Yi thought for a while and said he hadn't seen Tian Chan and Sydney for a long time. Last time when he went back to the North Island, he said he would go to the Middle Island to see them, but he went to the West Island instead. This time, he could make up for it. Oh, it's a pity that it's not convenient this time. Otherwise, I'd really like to go to Zhongdao with you and meet Tian Chan and Sydney, whom you and Jingjing often talk about. Huiyuti said with some pity. She had just successfully broken through to the profound ascension realm, so she had to properly stabilize her cultivation level. Lu Ziyu would not let her go out and run around. Yes, I think so too. What a pity. Ning Shuefei sighed as well. Huiyuti was already half a graduate, while Ning Shuefei had just enrolled. It was even more impossible for her to run around. Don't worry, there will always be a chance in the future. Lin Yi had to smile and comfort the two women, and then said, By the way, Yuti, I've already told Xinyan and Xiao Tao to go with you to the Xuanjiesi area. When the Xuanjiesi area starts to recruit people, let me know. No matter whether I can come or not, at least let me know your whereabouts. Well, I got it. Huiyuti nodded repeatedly. Oh, you're all going to the Xuanjiesi area. What about me? Ning Shuefei said with a sad face. You? Lin Yi and Huiyuti looked at each other and smiled. Of course, you'll stay here and cultivate. Even if you're the princess of the West Island, you can't go to the Xuanjiesi area before your strength reaches the profound ascension realm, right? It's so annoying. If I knew this would happen, I would have cultivated well. I wouldn't have been left alone now. Ning Shuefei said sullenly. Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh. If you cultivated well, you wouldn't be Ning Shuefei. Among the people he knew, Ning Shuefei and Shangguan Laner had the best family background, and their talent wasn't bad. If they focused on cultivation, they would be able to achieve something great. Unfortunately, the two of them hated boring things like cultivation the most. Even the strength of the Foundation establishment realm was obtained by taking pills, let alone other things. Humph, from today on, I've decided to cultivate in seclusion. Ning Shuefei snorted angrily. Looking at Lin Yi and Huiyuti's eyes, she thought about it and quickly changed her words. Forget it, I'll start tomorrow. After you leave, I'll start working hard. I'll definitely surprise you in the future. Really? Then you're not going to study arrays and automatic casting mechanisms? Lin Yi looked at her with a smile. Ning Shuefei choked. To her, this was much more interesting than cultivation, so she quickly changed her words again. Then I'll use half of my time to cultivate. That should be fine, right? All right, you said it yourself. If I find that you haven't made any progress the next time I come, I'll spank you. Lin Yi smiled. Ning Shuefei looked at Lin Yi's palm and blushed. She said shyly, Do you want to take off your clothes and spank me? Uffed. Lin Yi had just taken a sip of tea. when he spat it all over Huiyudi's face. Even Huiyudi choked. What was this girl thinking? Ning Shuefei could only wipe the tea off her face bitterly and said helplessly, "I wash my face today. Thanks." Lin, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He finally stopped teasing this girl and was about to speak his mind. At this time, Long Rufen suddenly shouted at the door. "Boss, Jiang Hahai is here." "Okay, let him in." Linny nodded and turned to Huiyudi and Ning Shuefei. "You two go to the courtyard first. I have something to tell him. It's his private matter." "Okay." Huiyudi and Ning Shuefei obediently responded. After the two girls went out, Jiang Hahai immediately rushed in. He didn't care about etiquette and hurriedly cupped his hands at Lin Yi. "Brother Lin, how is Qinyu?" "The good news is that she went to the path of the magnate and is now an early-stage mysterious ascension master," Linny said lightly. "Really?" Hearing this, Jiang Hahai was overjoyed and muttered in disbelief, "How did Qinyu improve so quickly? She was even weaker than me at that time. It seems like she met a famous teacher in Morningstar Academy. Then I can rest assured." "That's great, that's great." Although Qinyu had pulled far ahead of him in terms of strength, Jiang Hahai did not feel any resentment because of this lowly pride. Instead, he felt happy for Qinyu from the bottom of his heart. In fact, strength or not was only secondary. In his heart, it was enough as long as Qinyu lived a good life. No, she didn't meet any famous teachers. On the contrary, she didn't have any backing at all. Instead, she was bullied by others. Lin Yi poured cold water on her. Chapter 4970. That's why I'm going to tell you some bad news. I hope you can handle it. Lin Yi sighed, seeing that Jiang Hahai was ready. He slowly said, "Qinyu was raped by a second-generation cultivator called Zheng Tianguang." Raped. Jiang Hahai almost fainted when he heard that. Lin Yi nodded and told Jiang Hahai about Qinyu's incident from beginning to end. He did not take a subjective stance and simply narrated it as a bystander. After all, he was just an outsider. Lin Yi did not want his own perception to affect Jiang Hahai's judgment. With that, the room fell into a deathly silence. Lin Yi looked at Jiang Hahai quietly, waiting to see how the guy would react. After a long time, Jiang Hahai suddenly raised his head. His eyes were blood red, and he seemed to be in a hysterical state. He gasped for breath, and he seemed like a ferocious beast that had crawled out of hell. Lin Yi shook his head. This guy was so agitated that he was about to go crazy. However, this was not surprising. Jiang Hahai was deeply in love with Qinyu. Anyone would not be able to take it when they heard that their lover had gone through such a miserable experience. It was normal for him to have a mental breakdown. Just as Lin Yi was hesitating about whether to knock him out, Jiang Hahai suddenly spoke. His voice was not as clear as before. Instead, it was indescribably hoarse. "Thank you, Brother Lin, for everything you did for Qinyu. I will never be able to repay you in this lifetime. You're too kind." Lin Yi looked at him worriedly. He sounded calm, but the calmer he was at a time like this, the more abnormal it was. It would have been better if he'd let it all out, but who knew what kind of scary things were brewing behind this abnormal calmness? Bang, bang, bang. Jiang Hahai kowtowed 3 times to Lin Yi, then suddenly stood up and walked out of the room. Seeing that the situation was not good, Lin Yi quickly stopped him. "What are you going to do?" From Lin Yi's point of view, there was only one outcome for such a state of madness under the cover of calmness, and that was to kill. However, it was unknown whether the other party was going to kill Zheng Tianguang or Qinyu. Killing Zheng Tianguang was easy to understand, as he was the main culprit of the tragedy. Killing Qinyu was also easy to understand, as she had given up on herself. To most men, this was something unforgivable. I want to tear those who bullied Qinyu to shreds, one by one. Jiang Hahai gritted his teeth, but he did not completely lose his mind. He turned to look at Lin Yi and said, "Big brother Lin, you don't have to worry about me. I'm not stupid enough to kill people now. At least I have to wait until I break through to the profound ascension realm. Otherwise, it won't be revenge, but death." Linny looked at him deeply. Whether it was in terms of strength or aptitude, there was nothing outstanding about this man. However, at this moment, he suddenly felt that this man was not an ordinary person. Under great stimulation, many people would have a mental breakdown, but there were also a few who would be reborn and amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. Jiang Jianghai might be one of the rare few in the latter category. Then how are you going to treat Qinyu? Linny asked curiously. Although he did not want to interfere in the private matters between these two, he would still feel uneasy if it caused a tragedy. Jiang Hahai glanced at Lin Yi and turned to leave, leaving behind a sentence. No matter what happened to her in the past, it was not her fault. It was my incompetence. As long as her heart does not change, I will never let her down. What an infatuated man. Linny looked at Jiang Hahai's back and smacked his lips. He had imagined many possible situations, and Jiang Hahai's reaction was undoubtedly the one that gave him the highest evaluation. It seemed that if there was a chance in the future, he could also train this person well. What happened to this Jiang Hai? He used to look honest, but why is he so angry today? He looks like he wants to eat someone. Ning Xuefei ran in with Hui Yudi. Yeah, could it be that something happened to Qinyu? Hui Yudi asked curiously. Although she did not know about Qinyu's tragic experience, she had seen how Lin Yi had called Qinyu over. The only thing that could make Jiang Hahai act so strangely was his fiancée, Qinyu. Yes, it is indeed Qinyu's matter. However, this is their private matter. Let's not be nosy. Linny said, then said, "Oh, right, I will be preparing to concoct pills, so I won't be accompanying you two." Concoct pills? The two girls were stunned at the same time. Ning Xuefei could not help but pout. "You can concoct pills anytime, but do you have to do it now? You were supposed to leave tomorrow morning." "It is precisely because I am leaving tomorrow morning that I have to concoct pills now. Otherwise, it will be too late." Linny laughed meaningfully. "What will be too late?" Ning Xuefei was confused. "You will know when the time comes." "Oh, right. Fei, come to my room tonight. I have something to do," Linny instructed. "Tonight? I will go to your room alone?" Ning Xuefei suddenly blushed. She turned her head and tugged at the corner of Hui Yudi's clothes. She said weakly, "Then let Sister Hu come with you." "It seems that there is something good waiting for you, Fei. I will not accompany you. This journey of becoming a giant has been tormenting me for so long. I still need to have a good sleep to recuperate." Hui Yudi and Lin Yi looked at each other and smiled. She had already guessed what Lin Yi was going to do. Ning Xuefei was confused. She looked at Lin Yi and then looked at Hui Yudi. She pouted and said, "What are you going to do? Why are you being so mysterious?" "You will know when the time comes," Hui Yudi said as she pulled Ning Xuefei out, leaving the room for Lin Yi. Linny smiled. He immediately took out the divine armament cauldron and began to refine pills. This time, he was not going to refine a profound first-level pill like the earth solid pill. Instead, he was going to refine a kind of pill that he was already familiar with. The sky turned dark in the blink of an eye. In order not to disturb Lin Yi, Hui Yudi, and Ning Xuefei stayed outside in the courtyard during the day. Even at night, they huddled together in the next room. After hesitating for a long time, Ning Xuefei finally came to Lin Yi's room under Hui Yudi's incitement. I'm here." Ning Xuefei tiptoed in. Her face was red, and she had a guilty look on her face. Puff. Lin Yi was dumbfounded when he saw her dress at the moment. He didn't know what this girl was thinking. At this time, she was only wearing a thin undershirt. It was half transparent and faintly discernible. She was like a tempting little demon. "Why are you dressed like this?" Linny looked at her strangely. Chapter 4971. Which one? Linny was stunned. "That's it. We are engaged. Although it's a bit unreasonable to do this. After all, we don't know when we will meet again. It's necessary to keep a seed." Ning Xuefei's voice became softer and softer, and in the end, it was almost inaudible. "Keep a seed." Fortunately, Lin Yi didn't drink any tea this time, or he'd have sprayed tea all over her face again. This girl's mind was really out of this world. He only asked her to come over at night. How could she think of something like this? Isn't it? Ning Xuefei was a little surprised. "Ugh, Fei, you misunderstood. I really didn't ask you to come this time for this. We are not going to be separated forever. It's just a temporary separation. Why do you want to keep a seed for no reason?" Lin Yi was dumbfounded. Ning Xuefei's blushing cheeks became even redder. She quickly covered her chest with her hands and said hurriedly, "Then I will go change clothes." Ning Xuefei turned around and left. Lin Yi quickly stopped her. "Come back. Since you are already here, why change clothes? Anyway, you have to take them off." "Take them off?" Ning Xuefei couldn't help but be surprised. She looked at Lin Yi in a daze and said, "Didn't you say that you don't want to keep a seed?" "I didn't say that, but the next thing needs you to take off your clothes. Hurry up. We don't have much time." Lin Yi reached out and gestured. "Oh." Although Ning Xuefei was confused, she still did it obediently. Although she was shy, it was not the first time she acted like this in front of Lin Yi. Thinking back to the first time they met on the far North Island, it was the same situation. Ning Xuefei then asked charmingly, "Then, do you also want to take it off? I'm just helping you improve your strength, not for myself. Why do I have to take off my clothes?" Linny said with a smile. "Improve your strength? So that's why you called me here." Ning Xuefei finally reacted. She had already heard about this hundreds of times from Shangguan Laner. At that time, she was envious of the other party's ability to quickly improve her strength without cultivating. She had even talked to Lin Yi about it several times. However, Lin Yi felt that it was too much of a waste to do so. It was not a good thing in the long run, so he had never agreed to it. He didn't expect it to be brought up today. "That's right. I know that with your personality, it's impossible for you to concentrate on cultivation alone, so I can only choose this last resort," Lin Yi said helplessly. If Ning Xuefei wanted to improve even a little bit, he would definitely not help her improve her strength. After all, only the strength obtained through hard work and hard training was the most reliable. It was a pity that Ning Xuefei was the same as Shangguan Laner. Although she had patted her chest and guaranteed before, Lin Yi was sure that she would never be able to do it. This was purely her nature. Unless the two of them were forced into a desperate situation, they would never have this kind of awareness. Now that Wang Xinyan, Huang Xiaotao, and Huo Yudi were all at the early stage of profound ascension, they would definitely go to the profound sea together in the future. If Ning Xuefei's strength was not raised quickly, she would be the only one left behind. Although there was Long Rufin and Yang Qianxue guarding here, and Linny had nothing to worry about, he couldn't really let Long Rufin and Yang Qianxue guard here forever, right? With the resources of the Golden Stage Academy, it was not enough to support the cultivation of a profound ascension expert. Who knew how long it would take for Ning Xuefei to cultivate to the profound ascension stage? if Long Rufin and Yang Qianxue wasted so many years here for Ning Xuefei, no matter how powerful a genius was, they would still be wasted. Lin Yi felt very guilty. What's more, with Ning Xuefei's mischievous personality, even if she was extremely talented, it was still unknown whether she could reach the profound ascension stage. So after thinking about it, Lin Yi decided to raise her strength first. At that time, he could let her, Long Rufin, and Yang Qianxue go to the profound sea with Huiyuti and the others. Lin Yi had nothing to worry about. As for the problem of strength, it could be made up for bit by bit in the future. With Lin Yi's means, he would always be able to think of a way. Great! Ning Xuefei immediately cheered when she heard this. Completely forgetting her current situation, Lin Yi's face turned red. She didn't even notice it herself, and said excitedly, "Then what realm can you raise my strength to? Can I directly reach the profound ascension stage?" "Hee, didn't you vow to cultivate hard during the day? Why did you throw it to the back of your mind so quickly? Aren't you afraid that I'll spank you?" Lin Yi laughed. "If you want to spank me, then spank me. Anyway, it's fine as long as you don't let me cultivate. I can do a lot of things with so much time saved," Ning Xuefei said in a silly voice. Lin Yi was speechless. If it wasn't for the fact that he didn't have much time, he might not have been able to control himself in this kind of situation. He could only say, "It's impossible to directly reach the profound ascension stage, but I can first raise you to the great perfection of the nascent soul stage, and then create an artificial thunder tribulation for you to help you fuse with the spirit root to reach the profound ascension stage. Here, these are the 2 7th-grade great recovery pills that I just refined. Do you still have the Thunder Xian pill that I gave you last time?" Ning Xuefei took the 2 pills in a daze, both of which were of the best quality. She said strangely, "Yes, don't you only need the Thunder Xian pill to reach the profound ascension stage? Why do you still need the 7th-grade great recovery pill?" The Thunder Xian pill can only be used to buffer the thunder tribulation. For people like you, Dai, and the others who cultivate normally, it is indeed enough to have 1 Thunder Xian pill. Even if they fail to reach the profound ascension stage, they can still ensure their lives. But you are different. Your strength was raised by external forces, and your foundation is not enough. I'm afraid that there will be an accident. These 2 great recovery pills may come in handy." Lin Yi explained. In fact, if it was only the 7th-grade great recovery pill, he didn't need to refine it on the spot. But he was afraid of accidents. Only by refining the best quality pills himself could he be at ease. After all, this was not a trivial matter, and he must ensure that nothing goes wrong. If there was no Chang Mingue, who was eyeing him covetously, Lin Yi could have raised Ning Xuefei's strength to the peak of nascent soul stage, and let her consolidate for a few months before attempting to reach the profound ascension stage. Unfortunately, the situation was special, and he could only take a little risk. Of course, this was also because of Ning Xuefei's extraordinary aptitude. If she only had an average aptitude, Lin Yi would never do this, because after raising her strength to the peak of nascent soul stage, she would immediately attempt to reach the profound ascension stage. The difficulty of this was absolutely not a small matter, and only the true geniuses could succeed. Lin Yi believed that Ning Xuefei was such a genius, but this genius was more mischievous and never liked to cultivate. Chapter 4972. Next was the real challenge. Lin Yi gave Ning Xuefei only 2 hours to familiarize herself with the realm of Yuanying realm, and it couldn't be more than that. Since she couldn't make steady progress step by step, she could only take advantage of the strong inertia of the improvement of strength to break through to Xian Sheng. If she waited too long in the middle, the rhythm of rapid upgrading would be cold, which would increase the difficulty of Ning Xuefei. So 2 hours was the limit. After 2 hours, Ning Xuefei suddenly opened her eyes, and there was an unprecedented brilliance in her eyes, which made Lin Yi's eyes brighten. This girl's aptitude was really against the natural order. In just 2 hours, she had already familiarized herself with the new realm of Yuanying realm. Even if it was not completely stable in the eyes of ordinary people, it was already a great move against the natural order. Let's go, find a secluded place to break through to Xiansheng. Lin Yi was relieved. Ning Xuefei's state at the moment gave him a little more confidence, not to mention that she had the Thunder Xian pill and the 7th grade recover pill of the best quality. Even if Ning Xuefei failed this time, she would not be in danger, so he didn't need to worry too much. The two of them arrived at the outskirts and waited for Ning Xuefei to signal that they were ready. Without hesitation, Lin Yi unleashed the 1,000 lightning explosions. The power of this 1,000 lightning explosions was several times stronger than normal lightning tribulations. It was enough for Ning Xuefei to use it to merge with her spirit root. Of course, it didn't matter if it wasn't enough. With Lin Yi here, he could add another lightning strike at any time. As for the more powerful thunder burial, even a master in the early stage of mountain opening like Zhang Zili couldn't resist it. With Ning Xuefei's strength, even if she took the Thunder Xian pill, it would be useless, and she would be struck into ashes. Lin Yi didn't dare to take this risk. Looking at Ning Xuefei, who was immersed in the dark blue thunder pillar, seeing that she was still calm at the moment, Lin Yi was completely relieved. Although this girl usually played tricks and refused to cultivate, at this time she still had the demeanor of a big family. She deserved to be the daughter of Ning Shangling, the master of West Island. Her talent and demeanor were deeply rooted in her bones. A mother knows her daughter best. If not, how could Ning Shangling insist on letting her be the successor of West Island? After all, it was not a good thing for a weak person to climb to such a high position. Ning Shangling was not the kind of person who would bet on the fate of West Island with her daughter. Since she insisted on doing this, it meant that Ning Xuefei did have the potential, the extraordinary potential to grow up to be the master of West Island. For a person who had the potential to grow into the master of the West Island, things like breaking through to the profound ascension realm were just a piece of cake for her. Just like Ning Xuefei's current performance, it was as if nothing had happened. This girl's talent is really scary. It's a pity. Lin Yi couldn't help but shake his head. With Ning Xuefei's talent and background, if she was willing to train hard, she would have already become a profound ascension stage master. There would be no need for him to do this. At dawn the next day, when Lin Yi brought a completely new Ning Xuefei to the newcomer's courtyard, Hui Yudi, Leng Rufeng, and Yang Qinxue were already waiting at the door with their heads raised in anticipation. In addition, Ning Xuefei's master, Chen Xingma, had also come. How is this possible? Feeling Ning Xuefei's powerful aura, Hui Yudi was not surprised at all, but Leng Rufeng and Yang Qinxue's eyes almost popped out. She was clearly still in the gold course stage yesterday. How did she become the early stage of the profound ascending stage overnight? Is this world crazy? Even Chen Xingma, who had always been gentle and intellectual, couldn't help but cover her mouth with her hand at this time, and looked at Ning Xuefei blankly, not knowing what to say. It's just a little trick. I hope everyone can help me keep it a secret. Lin Yi cupped his hands to everyone. This is a little trick. Leng Rufeng almost bit his tongue off, and said with a strange face, Boss, even if you are modest, there should be a limit. If this is all a little trick, then what is the point of us people cultivating? We might as well go back to our hometown to farm. He and Lin Yi didn't get to know each other without fighting. Before this, although he felt that Lin Yi was powerful, he never thought that he would be worse than Lin Yi, but Lin Yi's move completely subverted his worldview and outlook on life. When he thought of those stupid ideas before, he wanted to find a hole to hide in. There was only one thought in his mind now. His boss was really a god. Yes, your method is really incredible. It can be called heaven-defying. Chen Xingma also sighed, looked at Ning Xuefei, and said with a bitter smile, "It seems that Master has nothing to teach you in the future. How can that be? Fei Fei still has a lot of things to learn from Master, especially array. Master, you can't hide it." Ning Xuefei hugged Chen Xingma intimately. In the past, she used to allocate more than half of the time to cultivate, but now it was good before going to the Xuanjia Sea. She only needed to follow Chen Xingma to concentrate on learning array, which was exactly what she wanted. That's good. Array has many uses, Fei Fei. It's not a bad thing for you to understand more. It will come in handy in the future. Chen Xingma nodded. Although she was not a formation master, she had some experience in this aspect. At least, it would not be a problem for her to guide Ning Xuefei. As for the future, if Ning Xuefei wanted to go further, with her identity as the Princess of West Island, she could totally find a better formation master to teach her. She could be considered as laying the foundation for Ning Xuefei. All right, I've done what I need to do here. Let's part ways here. We'll meet again in the future. Linny said, "Then you have to take care of yourself. When the Xuanjia Academy starts recruiting, you must rush over." Ning Xuefei and Hui Yudi looked at each other and said, "I will try my best. Don't worry, I will definitely come to find you." Linny nodded, gently hugged Hui Yudi, and Ning Xuefei cupped his hands towards the crowd, turned around, and left. Along the way out of the gate of Soaring Cloud Academy, Lin Yi was not surprised, once again attracted the attention of the crowd. But the focus of the crowd was not only him. The surrounding people were clearly talking about the strange phenomenon last night. After all, the Thousand Thunder explosion was a huge movement. It was impossible to not be noticed at all. Lin Yi secretly shivered. This was not a good thing. If Chang Mingwei chased him nearby, it would be very easy for him to find his trace. As expected, it was better to leave as soon as possible. Using the butterfly subtle steps to leave the boundary of Soaring Cloud City, Lin Yi went straight to the largest yellow rank port in the East Continent. After all, he did not have a flying spirit beast with him. It was not easy to go to the Middle Island. He could only take a boat. However, if he wanted to go from the East Continent to the Middle Island, ordinary boats obviously would not work. Only warships and treasure ships could cross the vast sea, but these warships and treasure ships were the strategic resources of the various forces. Under normal circumstances, how could they let outsiders ride on them? Chapter 4973. Okuda Ba had said before that if he didn't go out to sea, he would usually be stationed at the Golden Port. Hero Lin, I didn't expect you to become a mysterious, ascendant early stage master in just a few months. Congratulations! Okuda Ba was stunned when he saw Lin Yi. The last time he saw Lin Yi, he was only at the middle stage of nascent soul. This improvement was not just huge, it was like flying. He had never seen the world before. If he knew that Ning Xuefei went from Golden Core stage to Mysterious Ascendant stage overnight, his reaction would be the same as Lung Ruffin's, and his eyes would pop out. Hee, it's rare to come to the East Continent. If my strength didn't improve at all, how can I go back and meet people? Lin Yi couldn't help but smile. That's too exaggerated. I've been in the East Continent for so many years, but I've never heard of anyone improving as fast as you. Young Hero Lin is indeed extraordinary. Okuda Ba sighed, then asked, Young Hero Lin, are you preparing to go out to sea? Yes, I plan to go to Middle Island. I don't have any connections here. So after thinking about it, I can only ask the captain for help. Linny nodded. What do you mean help? Hero Lin, did you forget that you are the honorary vice captain of this ship? We are all on the same side. How can I help you? Okuda Ba pretended to be dissatisfied. I said the wrong thing. Captain, Please don't blame me. Lin Yi shook his head and laughed. Okuda Ba was also a wonderful person. Not only was he capable, but he also changed his attitude quickly. However, he was very enthusiastic about those who caught his eye. As long as they were used to his style, it was not difficult to get along with them. That's right. Okuda Ba smiled and patted Lin Yi's shoulder. I'll get someone to arrange it, but it'll take some time to prepare. After all, such a big worship can't go there empty-handed. There are so many brothers who have to eat. It's not realistic for them to go to Middle Island alone for you. I hope you can understand this. Of course. Lin Yi nodded his head. The resources consumed by an ancient warship for a trip to the sea was an astronomical figure. Even if Okuda Ba valued him, it was impossible for him to lose so much money. He would definitely take the opportunity to make some profits. That's good. Young hero Lin is indeed reasonable. I'll get someone to hang up Nakajima's signboard. I believe that there will be a merchant association looking for you soon. It won't take long. Okuda Ba smiled. Under normal circumstances, an ancient warship of his size would not do such business. Usually, he would deal with the big shots of the various Heaven Stage islands and then do business with the various forces. Just like last time when he carried the disciples of Morning Pride Academy and Soaring Cloud Academy, he would rarely run errands for the various chambers of commerce. But this time, the situation was special. Their main purpose was to send Lin Yi to Middle Island, and it was reasonable to get some extra money from the Chamber of Commerce as a subsidy. Ancient warships had always been very popular in the eyes of the big Chamber of Commerce because they were much faster and safer than ordinary treasure ships. So as long as he hung up the signboard, he believed that it wouldn't take long to attract enough business. Although Lin Yi wanted to leave the East Continent as soon as possible, this kind of waiting was unavoidable. He could only stay on the warship patiently. After hovering like this for a few days, the warship was filled with a large amount of resources from the various chambers of commerce. Finally, the warship sounded. Lin Yi stood on the deck and looked at the busy golden port. He couldn't help but sigh. Although this trip to the East Continent wasn't long, only a few months. But the things he experienced were full of twists and turns, and all of them left a deep impression on him. While he was sighing, suddenly Lin Yi's eyelids twitched. There was a sudden gust of wind above the golden port. A man and a condor were faintly discernible in the clouds. Isn't that the ghost of death? What is he doing here? Okuda Ba's voice suddenly sounded. He had always been used to dealing with big shots. Chang Minggui was a famous person in the Golden Sea, so he naturally knew him. He's here to kill me. Lin Yi smiled faintly. Really? Young hero Lin, when did you offend this guy? Okuda Ba was shocked. I beat up his wife and son on the road to becoming a tycoon. Naturally, he hates me to the core. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have left the East Continent in such a hurry. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. There's such a thing. I remember that his wife, Zhang Zili, is an early-stage mountain opening expert. You can even beat her. Okuda Ba was shocked again. That's not a good thing. Otherwise, why would this guy chase me all the way here? Lin Yi shook his head with a bitter smile. He'd underestimated Chang Minggui's determination to kill him. He'd been injured quite badly last time, but he'd come back so quickly, chasing him all the way to the Golden Dock. It was truly unexpected. Don't worry. Since he's on my ship, it's useless even if he chased me all the way here. You just stand here and watch. Let's see if he dares to take a step closer. Okuda Ba chuckled. It seemed like he had no intention of giving Chang Minggui any face. Lin Yi was stunned. He really didn't expect Okuda Ba to be so loyal. This isn't just for you. Speaking of which, I have a little history with this guy. When I went to find his wife to refine pills, this guy actually wanted to poke his nose into my worship. He's really too much. This time, it's a good chance to break his spirit." Okuda sneered. "Then, thank you, Captain. I can't thank you enough." Lin, he cupped his hands gratefully. If Okuda didn't protect him today, the scene in Nanzhou's sea would have happened again. The only difference was that he was being chased by Shishan Elder, but this time it was Chang Mingue. As the two were talking, Chang Mingue had also noticed Lin Yi's silhouette. After all, Lin Yi was standing on the deck in broad daylight. If he couldn't see him with his spiritual sense as a late-phase mountain master, then that meant he was a fake. He's here. Chang Mingue was overjoyed. After sending off his brother Chang Tianwen, he went back to help Zhang Zili and Chang Lading settle down. These two were now in a vegetative state, and unless he could find a doctor like Zhang Liju to save them, it would be hard for them to wake up. This naturally made Chang Mingue grit his teeth. In his rage, he didn't care about his injuries and chased Lin Yi all the way to Morning Star Academy. However, he didn't dare to go there directly and could only ask around for help. In the end, he learned that Lin Yi had gone to Soaring Cloud Academy. Chapter 4974. Chang Mingue was about to attack without a word, but when he saw where Lin Yi was, especially Okuda, who was standing beside Lin Yi, his expression changed. In terms of strength, he did not think much of Okuda, but the problem was that Okuda was not an ordinary mountain opening expert. He was the captain of the ship. If Lin Yi was standing on an ordinary ship, Chang Mingue would have attacked without hesitation, just like he did on Thunderous Plains Island. Ordinary ships would not be able to withstand his full attack unless their defensive formations were activated to the maximum. But this was an ancient warship. Not only was the defensive formation much more powerful than the treasured ship, but the most important thing was that this thing was equipped with an extremely powerful offensive formation. Not to mention Chang Mingue, a late-stage mountain opening expert. Even his clan brother Chang Tianwen, a late-stage earth opening expert, wouldn't dare to challenge such a terrifying ultimate weapon by himself. Not to mention other things. Just the starfall formation alone was enough to make people tremble with fear. Chang Mingue did not even dare to give chase as he watched the warship swagger away. What if Okuda used the starfall formation to attack him after he chased him to the sea? At that time, not even his bones would be left. Okuda was an extremely daring person, and they had a grudge against each other. It was not impossible for him to do such a thing. He had already caught up to Lin Yi, but he could only watch helplessly as Lin Yi escaped. Chang Mingue was about to go crazy with anger. But as angry as he was, Chang Mingue was helpless in this situation. He could not even vent his anger on the people around Lin Yi. After all, he was only in the late mountain opening stage, not the late earth opening stage like Chang Tianwen. If he dared to go to a morning star or morning prodigy to kill people and cause trouble, there would only be one outcome: death. Lin Yi could not help but laugh as he watched Chang Mingue stiffen above the golden port. This guy was not stupid to be able to maintain his rationality under such circumstances. It's a pity that this guy didn't take the bait. Okuda slapped his thigh. "You really want to kill him?" Lin Yi was surprised. He thought that Oba Okuda was just joking. He didn't expect that Oba Okuda really had such intentions. "Of course. Ever since I saw you controlling the starfall array, I've been studying it. I feel like I've improved a lot, so I decided to make fun of this guy. Who knew he would be so terrified? What a disappointment." Okuda said with a displeased expression. "Aren't you afraid of the repercussions of killing him? He has a clan brother called Chang Tian, one who is a late-stage earth opening realm expert." Lin Yi could only remind him. "What's the big deal? about the late stage of Earth creation. Could it be that the sea dragon we encountered last time was inferior to him? Ba Okuda's face was full of disdain, and he said with a yearning expression, compared to the true super-existences in the endless sea, these people are not even worth a fart. I have an ancient battleship, and I can even travel the endless sea. Why would I be afraid of them? If he dares to come, I dare to kill him. Lin-Yi was suddenly speechless. This guy was indeed a dangerous person. When they first met, he didn't hesitate to throw him, the prince consort of West Island, into the sea to feed the sea beasts. He didn't take the dignified West Island seriously at all. Now, his attitude was even more vivid. A person who could travel the sea was really not simple. Although the route from Dongzhou to Middle Island was much shorter than that from West Island, it was still a dangerous journey. However, since it was an ultimate weapon like the ancient battleship, the so-called danger was not worth mentioning. Such a huge ship could not only fight against natural disasters, but also deter the powerful sea beasts that were ready to make trouble in the sea. Unless the last situation occurred, the ancient battleship was almost invincible in the vast sea. How many sea dragons were there in the world? And how high was the probability of encountering one? Ba Okuda had traveled the sea for 300 years, and he had only seen the so-called god of the sea once. The probability was lower than winning the lottery in the secular world. As for being targeted by sea dragons twice in a row, this kind of situation did not exist at all. It was a peaceful journey. When the huge and spectacular ancient battleship docked in Middle Island, the dock suddenly caused a commotion. Unlike treasure ships, the ultimate weapon like the ancient battleship had always existed in Dongzhou. Unless the Dongzhou delegation came to visit, it was usually not seen in a place like Middle Island. Captain, thank you so much for this time. Lin-Yi stood on the deck and said goodbye to Ba Okuda. Don't mention it. We are on the same side. Don't mention it. Ba Okuda looked at Lin-Yi with some dissatisfaction, and then asked, by the way, how long are you going to stay in Middle Island this time? Do you want me to wait for you? Anyway, I have nothing important to do recently, and I can go to North Island on the way. There's no need for that. I'll be staying in Middle Island for a while, and it's not like the distant East Continent. It's very convenient to go from Middle Island to North Island. Captain, you don't have to wait for me. Lin-Yi smiled. There were indeed many ways for him to go back to North Island from Middle Island. Whether it was the will of heaven or the Hong Chamber of Commerce, he could arrange it. However, East Continent was different. It was very difficult to go from East Continent to any other heaven stage island. Without enough connections, ordinary people could only look at the ocean and sigh. Lin-Yi was lucky to have met Ba Okuda this time. Otherwise, he would have to go through a lot of trouble. I see. Since you said so, I won't try to please you. I'll get someone to hang a sign of East Continent, and I'll go back to East Continent in 2 days, lest the leaders of Middle Island feel uneasy and think that I have some ulterior motives towards Middle Island. Ba Okuda laughed. Lin-Yi couldn't help but smile. Ba Okuda wasn't just joking. Normally, when a sensitive ultimate weapon like an ancient warship appeared, the higher-ups would definitely be notified in advance to avoid unnecessary tension and conflict. However, this was a last-minute idea, and he didn't bring his diplomatic group for an official meeting. Naturally, Ba Okuda didn't inform them in advance. Under such circumstances, it was good enough that they could reach the shore safely. If they stayed longer, the higher-ups of Middle Island might not be able to eat and sleep well. Although an ancient battleship could not destroy the entire Middle Island, if it were to launch a sudden attack, the vitality of Middle Island would definitely be greatly damaged. The most troublesome thing was that there was no one in Middle Island who could compete with such an ultimate weapon, unless those old monsters who lived in seclusion in the Island Master Pavilion were alarmed. Captain, let's part ways here. See you again. Lin, he said goodbye with cupped hands. However, before Linny walked to the front, he saw from a distance that the entrance of Tiandan Pavilion was bustling with a large circle of people. Lin, he was suddenly stunned. After such a long time, Tiandan Pavilion was still so crowded when Tiandan Pavilion first opened, because there were all kinds of elixirs of the best quality. The business was extremely hot, just like the scene in front of him. However, even at that time, it did not last long. After a few days, the scene was not so hot anymore. Could it be that Tian Chan and Ning Xuefei were good at managing, and after more than 2 years of hard work, they had completely established the reputation of Tiandan Pavilion? But it should not be so popular, right? Lin, he could not help but feel a little strange. Although Tian Chan could also refine elixirs, she could basically only provide elixirs of high quality. As for the really popular elixirs of the best quality, he still needed to provide them. However, even if he regularly delivered elixirs to Heavenly Dan Pavilion, due to the fact that he had to travel a lot of times, he could not guarantee the quality of the elixirs. Under normal circumstances, he would only sell a limited amount of elixirs. It was already good enough for Tian Chan and Xue Li to retain their popularity, but it was impossible for them to sell so well. After all, if so many people could buy the elixirs that Lin Yi delivered regularly would not last for more than a few days. It was not desirable to have a flash in the pan, and a steady stream was the king's way. Once the supply of the best elixirs was cut off, the loss could not be made up by the hot sales in 1 or 2 days. At that time, the reputation of the entire Tiandan Pavilion would be damaged. There must be something going on here. Lin Yi suppressed the curiosity in his heart and immediately went over quietly. Sure enough, this scene was not because the business of Tiandan Pavilion was booming, but because there was a villain playing tricks. Everyone don't miss it. Our medicine sect has invited a senior alchemist from the East Continent, and he can refine 6th grade elixirs on the spot. Everyone, if you are interested, hurry up and take a look. If you are late, you won't be able to line up. The owner of the voice was a familiar face. It was the deputy manager of the medicine sect, Jiao Huanshan. Seeing this, Lin Yi frowned slightly. When the Tiandan Pavilion had just opened for business, this Jiao Huanshan had come to make trouble, but at that time, the will of heaven was present and dealt with him casually. He did not expect this clown to jump out again today. Was he not afraid of attracting the will of heaven again? Although he felt strange, Lin Yi did not show up directly. With his current vision, he naturally looked down on such a small character, but this matter was related to the reputation of Tiandan Pavilion. Before the matter was clarified, he was not ready to act rashly. Medicine sect, isn't this Tiandan Pavilion? A new onlooker in the crowd asked in a low voice. My dear friend, where are you from? Medicine sect and Tiandan Pavilion are mortal enemies. Don't you know this? A busybody next to him curled his lips and said, That's right. Because of the big gimmick of the highest grade elixir, Tiandan Pavilion has stolen a lot of business from the medicine sect in the past 2 years. Now, this deputy manager of the medicine sect is obviously going to steal back the source of customers. TSK. Even a 6th grade elixir can be refined on the spot. That senior alchemist from the East Continent is amazing. Maybe he is the legendary 7th grade alchemist. After all, an ordinary 6th grade alchemist would not dare to do this. Another onlooker explained in admiration. This time, Tiandan Pavilion is really going to be defeated, although it has all kinds of highest grade elixir. After all, the grade is not high. At most, it is only 5th grade. Even if the 6th grade elixir is not of the highest quality, it is still much more popular than Tiandan Pavilion. What's more, after a certain level, everyone has to consider the 6th grade elixir. Those 4th grade and 5th grade elixir are useless no matter how good the quality is. The onlookers sighed. In the end, it is still because of the lack of foundation. Tiandan Pavilion has only been established for 2 years, while Medicine Sect has been around for hundreds of years. They can easily invite a senior alchemist from the East Continent to hold the fort. What does Tiandan Pavilion have? Someone said disdainfully. Chapter 4976. More and more people were attracted over, but Tian Chan and Sydney could only stand in front of their own doors, helpless against the scene in front of them. Besides, Wei Shenjin had also rushed over after hearing the news, but he also looked helpless. Although Jiao Huanshan was very annoying, he didn't do anything to harm Tiandan Pavilion. He was only blocking the door and promoting Medicine Sect. Under these circumstances, they really couldn't do anything to him. Tian Chan and the other two could only stare. Even if they were angry, they could only swallow this grievance. Besides, in terms of strength and background, Tiandan Pavilion really wasn't a match for Medicine Sect. There was really nothing they could do. Tian Chan and Sydney looked at each other and shook their heads helplessly. Now that their biggest support in Middle Island had left, they couldn't do anything even if they complained. They could only let Jiao Huanshan, this clown, do whatever he wanted. Jiao Huanshan, don't go overboard. Don't you think you're going overboard? Wei Shenjin couldn't take it anymore. He stood up and interrupted the chattering Jiao Huanshan. Overboard? How is it overboard? I'm not stealing or robbing. I'm just standing here to say a few words of justice. How is that overboard? Jiao Huanshan sneered and glanced at Wei Shenjin. He sneered and said, I remember that Tiandan Pavilion has only been open for 2 years. Since when did it become so arrogant that people can't even say a few words at the door? You say, this is a word of justice? Jiao Huanshan, what exactly is your skin made of? You're competing so openly and maliciously, using such a despicable method to steal the customers of the Heavenly Dan Pavilion, and yet you can still say that you're doing this for justice without even blushing? Wei Shenjin coldly snorted as he suppressed his anger. I'm speaking the truth. If you're talking about maliciously competing, why don't you tell me which of my words just now wasn't the truth? Which of my words was deliberately slandering Tiandan Pavilion? If there is, you can pick it out for me, and I will apologize on the spot. Jiao Huanshan said fearlessly. You. Wei Shenjin suddenly choked. After all, he wasn't like Jiao Huanshan, who had been in the business world for a long time. He wasn't as eloquent and nimble as the others. Moreover, Jiao Huanshan's words really didn't leave any evidence that could be used against him. He was purely promoting his Medicine Sect, so it was hard for people to find fault with him. In fact, Wei Shenjin also knew that it was useless to argue with a clown like him. The best way was to overwhelm him with strength. Just like the last time when Tiandan Pavilion opened, the will of heaven could send this guy flying with a casual slap. How would he dare to say anything? Unfortunately, Wei Shenjin wasn't the will of heaven. At the end of the day, he was just a disciple of the Snow Sword Sect. He didn't know who was stronger than Jiao Huanshan. If they were to really fight, it was hard to say who would be sent flying. Seeing that Wei Shenjin was choked and couldn't say a word, Jiao Huanshan glanced at Tian Chan and Sydney proudly. He said disdainfully, Brat, you're just a few small characters, and you want to fight with me? Don't you think you're too inexperienced? Humph, you can't fight with words, and you can't fight with force either. If you're so capable, call the will of heaven here, and let him deal with me. As soon as he said that, the crowd was in an uproar. The will of heaven was a legendary figure that everyone in Middle Island knew. It was rare to see someone who dared to call out the will of heaven's name in public. This medicine sect's vice shopkeeper Jiao was really a big shot. Wei Shenjin was so angry that he almost rolled up his sleeves and made a move. In the end, he was stopped by Tian Chan and Sydney with a look. At this time, there were no masters who could suppress them. It was hard for the three of them to gain any advantage. Instead, they might suffer a big loss. If Jiao Huanshan took this opportunity to tear down the Tiandan Pavilion, then their 2 years of hard work would be wasted. Seeing that Wei Shenjin didn't get angry, Jiao Huanshan couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Tian Chan and the others guessed correctly. He did have the intention to make a fuss. After all, the existence of the Tiandan Pavilion was bound to steal a lot of business from the medicine sect. If he could take this opportunity to destroy the Tiandan Pavilion, then it would really be the end of it. Even if he had to pay a price for it, it would be worth it. Humph. I'm not afraid to tell you that I'm a master in the late stage of the nascent soul realm. If the will of heaven was here, then I wouldn't care. But he isn't here, so I'd like to see who can compete with me. As Jiao Huanshan spoke, he released his aura, which instantly shocked everyone around him. The crowd couldn't be blamed for having such a reaction. If it was a place like the East Continent, where experts gathered, a nascent soul late-stage cultivator was nothing at all. After all, any random passerby could be a profound ascension stage cultivator or even a mountain opening stage cultivator. Who would be afraid of a nascent soul late-stage cultivator? But this was the Middle Island, and nascent soul stage cultivators were already rare experts here. None of them were easy to deal with. As for the more powerful, profound ascension stage cultivators, they basically didn't go out much. They might not even see one in 10 days or half a month. Just like the situation now, Jiao Huanshan, a nascent soul late-stage cultivator, was already an invincible existence. Tian Chan and Sydney couldn't help but frown, and Wei Shenjin could only choose to retreat. There was no other way. He wasn't Jiao Huanshan's opponent at all. Even if he were to rush forward in a hot-blooded manner, it would only ruin things. Seeing this, Jiao Huanshan couldn't help but laugh out loud, while Lin Yi, who was in the crowd, was a little puzzled. The will of heaven had always been a powerful presence on the Heaven Stage Island. So why didn't it seem to be working? This Jiao Huanshan actually wasn't afraid that the will of heaven would settle the score with him. What was going on? But Lin Yi didn't think too much about this. Even if Jiao Huanshan was a nascent soul late-stage cultivator, he wasn't worthy of Lin Yi's attention at all. Now, even the president of the Golden Stage Academy Alliance, Zhuang Yifan, who was in the Earth Creation late stage, had to address him as a brother and even had to be respectful when speaking to him. Academy presidents like Ling Yuanqing were even more respectful to him. With Lin Yi's current level, there really weren't many people on the Middle Island that could make him pay attention. Lin Yi didn't choose to make a move just now because he wanted to understand the specific situation first. Now that he had heard the gist of it, there was naturally no need to continue listening to the nonsense. You can get lost now. Lin Yi walked out from the crowd and didn't even look at Jiao Huanshan. He smiled at Tian Chan and the others, who were pushed so hard that they couldn't speak. "I'm back." Tian Chan and Sydney were instantly overjoyed. The two of them had been waiting for Lin Yi for 2 whole years, but in the end, they couldn't get any definite news. They didn't expect that today, at this most embarrassing time, Lin Yi would actually appear. Wei Shenjin was also overjoyed. He was so anxious just now that he didn't know what to do. Lin Yi had entrusted him to look after the Tiandan Pavilion. If this clown, Jiao Huanshan, ruined the signboard, how would he have the face to see Lin Yi in the future? Chapter 4977. Who do you think you are? Jiao Huanshan didn't recognize Lin Yi at first. He only reacted after noticing the surprised expressions of Tian Chan and the others. He laughed and said, I was wondering who it was. So it's the manager of the Tiandan Pavilion that disappeared for 2 years. I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. If you don't know what's good for you, get lost. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless. Linny glanced at him indifferently. Oh, no wonder you're the manager of the Tiandan Pavilion. You're so young, but you talk big. Jiao Huanshan laughed mockingly and said disdainfully, but you can't scare people with your big talk. Do you think you're the will of heaven? You think you can scare me, a late-stage nascent soul expert, with just a few words? I'll return the same words to you. If you know what's good for you, go back to the Tiandan Pavilion. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless. Now that the will of heaven isn't here, it's easy for me to take care of you little brats. Is that so? How did Big Brother, the will of heaven, take care of you last time? Linny suddenly changed the topic and asked, What? Jiao Huanshan was stunned. He thought that Lin Yi wanted to use this to embarrass him. However, before he could fly into a rage, Lin Yi suddenly raised his hand and slapped him. Jiao Huanshan wanted to fight back subconsciously, but he suddenly realized that he couldn't move at all. There was no other reason. The aura that the other party emitted was too terrifying. It was even stronger than the will of heaven. A profound ascension expert, Jiao Huanshan was instantly dumbfounded. The surrounding crowd was also dumbfounded. They all looked at Lin Yi in disbelief. This person was actually a legendary profound ascension expert. Shouldn't such a terrifying person live in seclusion? Why would he appear on this street? According to Jiao Huanshan's words, this person was the manager of the Tiandan Pavilion. Lin Yi didn't use any martial techniques, just a simple wave of true qi, and Jiao Huanshan was sent flying in front of everyone. After all, Jiao Huanshan was only in the late stage of nascent soul. It would be strange if someone like him could still fight back against Lin Yi. Jiao Huanshan was slapped to the point where he was nowhere to be found. Only the sound of people inhaling sharply could be heard. Some of the people who had been persuaded by Jiao Huanshan immediately changed their minds. It seemed that although this heavenly pill pavilion had only been established for a short period of time, the backing behind it was indeed extraordinary. They might not lose to the medicine sect. Everyone, the Tiandan Pavilion, have always had a good reputation for doing business. Lin Yi, will leave a sentence here. Whether it's the 5th, 6th, or 7th grade, the Tiandan Pavilion will definitely have the elixirs that the medicine sect has. Even if the medicine sect doesn't have them, the Tiandan Pavilion will have them. Everyone please wait and see. Lin Yi cupped his hands and said to the crowd in a clear voice. As soon as he said that, the crowd immediately went into an uproar. Everyone's appetite was immediately whetted. Jiao Huanshan had spent so much effort to steal business. In the end, after Lin Yi's trick, not only did he not attract the crowd to the medicine sect, but he also looked forward to the Tiandan Pavilion even more. How was he here to ruin their reputation? He was clearly here to give them warmth. After saying that, Lin Yi walked into the Tiandan Pavilion, surrounded by Tian Chan and Sydney. 2 years had passed, but the layout inside had not changed at all. It was still the same as before, which made people sigh with emotion. The three of them went upstairs. As for the business downstairs, it was temporarily taken care of by Wei Shinjin. In any case, when the business was busy in the past, Wei Shinjin had helped a lot. After 2 years, he was already familiar with the business. "You've finally come to see us." As soon as they entered the room, before the door was even closed, Tian Chan and Sydney rushed into Lin Yi's arms. "It's been hard on you these 2 years. It's my fault. I should have come to see you earlier," Lin Yi said guiltily. The two girls sniffled at the same time. In the past 2 years, they had indeed felt a little sad. It was not that they felt that it was too hard to support the Tiandan Pavilion by themselves, but it was purely because they could not see Lin Yi. Although they also knew that Lin Yi could not be by their side all the time, it was not too much to see him twice a year. In the end, they had not seen each other for more than 2 years, and they were almost looking for a husband. It's good that you know. You're not allowed to leave the two of us like this in the future, or else. Tian Chan suddenly paused when she said that. Or else what? Linny smiled. Or else I'll kick you. Tian Chan suddenly blushed and gave Lin Yi a light kick. Me too. On the other side, Sydney followed suit. She grabbed Lin Yi, but it turned into a light hug. Lin Yi did not know whether to laugh or cry. Of course, the two girls did not really want to kick him. They were just being intimate. We haven't seen each other for so long. When did the two of you learn to kick people? It's too cruel. Looks like I can only come and pay my respects to you more often in the future, Lin Yi said, pretending to be honest. You said it yourself. You can't go back on your words. Tian Chan and Sydney looked at each other and smiled. Oh yeah, I wonder how Brother Tian is doing recently. From what Jiao Huanshan said just now, could he not be in Middle Island? Linny asked. Yes, he is indeed not in Middle Island. If Brother Tian was here, would Jiao Huanshan dare to be so presumptuous? Sydney said indignantly. With the Will of Heaven's illustrious reputation in Middle Island, even if Jiao Huanshan had 10 guts, he would not dare to come and cause trouble. If he really dared to come in front of the Will of Heaven, he would definitely be slapped to death. Oh, could it be that Brother Tian has something important to do and has gone to other Heaven Stage islands? Lin Yi asked curiously, just like the last time Chu Wentian went to West Island. The Will of Heaven was also the deputy island master of Middle Island. It was normal for him to represent Middle Island to go to other Heaven Stage islands. That's not it. Brother Tian's strength has reached the bottleneck of nascent soul perfected, so he left for East Continent some time ago. He plans to break through to profound ascension there. Tian Chan explained. I see. Linny nodded. If it was in the past, he would definitely wonder why he had to go to East Continent to break through to profound ascension, but with the experience of being a giant, he now completely understood. Although it was not impossible to break through to profound ascension in other places under normal circumstances, it was difficult to rely on one's own strength to trigger the thunder punishment. It must be met with the right weather. To reach the intensity of the thunder punishment, a normal thunderstorm was absolutely not enough. It was only possible when the heavenly thunder was strong to a certain extent. To put it bluntly, it all depended on the will of the heavens. Chapter 4978. Lin Yi couldn't help but shake his head secretly. It was a pity that they had missed each other. Otherwise, it was very likely that they would have reunited with the Will of Heaven on the Road of Giants. That would have been a pleasant surprise. There's no one good in the medicine sect. Not only is there a sinister villain like Jiao Huanshan, even the shopkeeper, Tong Yangsua, is a sanctimonious hypocrite. These 2 years, in order to put pressure on our Tiandan Pavilion, they have used all kinds of despicable means. They didn't dare to go too far because Big Brother Tian was here. But now that Big Brother Tian is gone, they immediately climbed all over us. This is intolerable, Sydney said angrily. These people are indeed shameless. Our strength is no match for Jiao Huanshan. Fortunately, Lin Yi, you arrived in time. Otherwise, I don't know how this matter would have ended. Tian Chan couldn't help but frown. Hee, you guys are worrying too much. From the situation just now, this Jiao Huanshan is actually a sensible person. Although he came to cause trouble, he didn't dare to do anything. He only dared to curse. I guess he's afraid that one day Big Brother Tian will come back to settle the score with him. Linny smiled faintly. There was a saying that a monk could run away, but not the temple. Even if they destroyed Tiandan Pavilion while the will of heaven was not around, the will of heaven would come back one day. If they were purely competing in business, then the will of heaven might not do anything to them. After all, as the deputy island master of Middle Island, he had to care about public opinion. However, if Zhao Huanshan dared to make a move on Tian Chan and the others, he would really be seeking his own death. When that time came, even if the will of heaven killed him to vent his anger, the medicine sect would not dare to stop him. They might even have to offer them up. This was a matter of life and death. Zhao Huanshan still weighed the pros and cons very clearly. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to become the deputy shopkeeper of the medicine sect. Even so, he's still despicable. He dared to come to our Tiandan Pavilion and steal our customers. This is too much. Sydney said angrily. She really couldn't swallow this. Although Tiandan Pavilion was supported by Tian Chan and Tian Chan was only in charge of alchemy. Sydney was the one in charge of the business. Only she knew how much effort and sweat had gone into it. For Tiandan Pavilion's reputation, she cared more than anyone else. Even Tian Chan could not compare, let alone Lin Yi. This time, because of Lin Yi's sudden appearance, although Zhao Huanshan had indeed received the punishment he deserved, and judging from the reactions of the crowd, it seemed like he hadn't stolen many customers, it still left an impact. Tiandan Pavilion still suffered a loss in the end. That's right. A kind person will be bullied, and a kind horse will be ridden. We can't just let this matter go like this. If we don't let the medicine sect suffer enough and learn their lesson, it won't be just the medicine sect in the future. Other large and small chambers of commerce will also follow suit. Then we can forget about doing business, Linny said with a nod. Then what do we do now? Do we go to their door to demand an explanation? Or should we just give them a taste of their own medicine and think of a way to steal their customers? Sydney asked hurriedly. That won't be necessary. Although it's not impossible to cause trouble at their door, it's still not a good idea. Linny shook his head. With his powerful strength that could rival the early stage of the mountain opening stage, he wasn't afraid even if he faced the entire medicine sect alone. If the other party couldn't bring out enough experts, it was not impossible to bully them with their strength. However, this was ultimately not the best plan, because this way, the medicine sect would become the victim, and public opinion would unknowingly lean towards the medicine sect. Other than being able to vent their anger, there was no benefit to Tiandan Pavilion at all. Could it be that you've already thought of a good idea? Tian Chan and Sydney's eyes lit up at the same time. It's not a good idea. As long as you have absolute strength, any countermeasures and schemes are superfluous. Lin Yi smiled and changed the topic. Let's not talk about this. Let's first find out about the situation of the medicine sect. After reuniting after a long time, the three of them had a moment of warmth. Lin Yi then brought the two girls downstairs. Wei Shenjin, who had been waiting for a long time, hurriedly greeted him. Boss Lin Yi, you're finally here. Hee, you've worked hard during this period of time. Lin Yi smiled and nodded. He had just heard from Tian Chan and Sydney that Wei Shenjin had been coming to Tiandan Pavilion almost every other day for the past 2 years, and all this was just because of an order from Lin Yi before he left. It could be seen that this guy was indeed a loyal person, and saving him back then was not in vain. Boss, you're overpraising me. In fact, I just put in some effort, and I can't help much. Like today's matter, I can't do anything at all. Fortunately, boss, you came, or else I really don't know what to do. Wei Shenjin smiled bitterly. Don't blame yourself. This matter can't be blamed on you. After all, it's too much to ask you to deal with Zhao Huanshan. Don't worry, I'll handle it myself. Lin Yi comforted him, and then said, "By the way, you're more familiar with this place. How about you help me find out about the specific situation of the medicine sect?" "Okay, boss, don't worry. Leave this matter to me." Wei Shenjin immediately patted his chest and accepted the order. It was not realistic for him to deal with Jiao Huanshan, who was in the late nascent soul stage, but it was a small matter to ask for information. After all, he was a native of Middle Island. Wei Shenjin was extremely efficient. He went out for less than half an hour and came back. He couldn't wait to report to Lin Yi. "Boss Lin Yi, I've found out that the medicine sect invited the high-level alchemist from the East Continent is called Zheng Dongsheng. I heard that he's Zheng Dongjue's distant cousin." Zheng Dongsheng? Lin Yi was slightly stunned when he heard this name. He felt that it was inexplicably familiar. After a while, he realized that the culprit who caused Qin Yu's tragedy, Zheng Tianguang's father, the number 2 alchemist in Morningstar Academy, was called Zheng Dongsheng. No wonder he wasn't in Morningstar Academy. He came to Middle Island to visit his relatives. Wait, isn't Zheng Dongsheng from the Alchemy Hall? Since Zheng Dongsheng is his distant cousin, why would he go to the medicine sect? I don't think the Alchemy Hall has a good relationship with the medicine sect, right? Lin Yi couldn't help but feel strange. He had heard from Kai Zhongyang that the Alchemy Hall didn't have a good relationship with the other businesses. If it wasn't for the alchemy god Zhang Liju, the Alchemy Hall, they would have been attacked by the other businesses a long time ago. Under these circumstances, why would an alchemist who had a relationship with the Alchemy Hall go to the medicine sect to concoct pills? Chapter 4979. Central Island is thousands of miles away from Dongzhou, and Tongyang Suo isn't related to this Zheng Dongsheng at all. How did he manage to invite him to Central Island? Lin Yi was still confused. That's not strange. Medicine Sect's headquarters may be here, but I heard that they're doing pretty well in Dongzhou as well, and they have connections with a lot of forces in Dongzhou. This Zheng Dongsheng seems to be working with them, and that's why Tongyang Suo invited him here. Although he's Zheng Dongjue's cousin, it's not like Zheng Dongjue can control where he wants to go, Wei Shenjin explained. That's true. Lin Yi nodded, but he still felt that something wasn't right, but he couldn't put his finger on it. After a pause, Lin Yi turned to Xinyan and asked, "Right, how's the situation in the Hall of Elixir recently? Has Master Zhang been back these 2 years?" "No, he hasn't shown himself for a long time, and Zheng Dongjue has been in charge of the Hall of Elixir these 2 years, Xinyan said with a sigh. This situation wasn't good for her, and Zheng Dongjue still hadn't given up on her. Although, because of the threat of the will of heaven, Zheng Dongjue wouldn't dare do anything for his grandson, but now that the will of heaven had gone to Dongzhou, and elixir god Zhang Liju was nowhere to be seen, the Hall of Elixir had almost become his rule. If Zheng Dongjue wanted to do something bad, Tian Chan wouldn't be able to resist at all. Even if Zhang Liju's disciples like Ho Guanqi and Kai Zhongyang came out to help her, they still wouldn't be able to stop Zheng Dongjue. Lin Yi was prepared for this answer, but he couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Although he came to Central Island to see Tian Chan and Sydney, he still had a glimmer of hope. If he was lucky enough to meet Zhang Liju, then those sleeping beauties of his could be saved. Unfortunately, this was destined to only be a beautiful fantasy. Now, it seemed that it would not be easy to meet this cheap master of his. He had to admit that the time had not come yet. As they were talking, a commotion suddenly came from outside. Someone shouted loudly outside the door. "Who just beat up the people from our famous medicine sect? Hurry up and come out." Hearing this sudden noise, the guests in the Tiandan pavilion ran out one after another. Suddenly, a large group of onlookers gathered outside, pointing and talking. Today, the Tiandan Pavilion and the medicine sect really clashed, and it was destined that there would be no peace here. Lin Yi, Tian Chan, and the others looked at each other and followed them out of the door. At a glance, they saw a middle-aged man, surrounded by the crowd. When Lin Yi saw the symbol on the man's sleeve, he was immediately stunned. "You're the profound ascending stage master who injured Diao Huanshan." The middle-aged man's gaze fell on Lin Yi. "Yes, that's me. Who are you from the Morning Star Academy?" Lin Yi frowned slightly. The middle-aged man was originally aggressive, but when he heard this, he was a little stunned. He hadn't said anything yet. How did this guy know that he was from the Morning Star Academy? Little did he know that Lin Yi had been in the Morning Star Academy for so long and even got the title of honorary dean. If he couldn't even recognize the symbol of the Morning Star Academy, wouldn't he be blind? "Oh, I didn't expect you to have some eyesight. You actually know that I'm from the Morning Star Academy." "Yes, I'm the Chancellor of the Morning Star Academy in the East Continent. Zhao Yuke?" The middle-aged man introduced himself, then sneered and said, "I heard that you're a profound ascending stage master, so you dare to bully our medicine sect's vice shopkeeper Jiao. Why don't you try bullying me too?" Before he finished speaking, Zhao Yuke suddenly released a powerful aura. The strength of the profound ascending middle stage was revealed in an instant, and it immediately shocked the surrounding people. Profound ascending stage masters were rare existences, and today they saw two of them at once. It was really worth watching this show. Tian Chan, Sydney, and Wei Shenjin's expressions changed at the same time. Although they knew that Lin Yi was a profound ascending stage master, he was only at the early profound ascending stage, while the opponent was at the profound ascending middle stage, which was 2 stages higher. Even with Lin Yi's strength, he might not be Zhao Yuke's opponent. However, Lin Yi seemed to be unaware of all this. He still looked at Zhao Yuke indifferently and frowned slightly. "You're a Chancellor of the Morning Star Academy, and you actually came to the Middle Island to be a thug for the medicine sect. Don't you think it's too embarrassing for the Morning Star Academy?" What do you know? Zhao Yuke's face couldn't help but sink. Of course, he also knew that it was a bit embarrassing to do so. After all, the identity of the Chancellor of the Morning Star Academy in the Eastern Continent was not ordinary. Perhaps it was not dazzling in the Eastern Continent where there were many masters, but after coming out, it represented the face of the Morning Star Academy. Once he did such a dirty thing, even the reputation of the Morning Star Academy would be affected. However, Zhao Yuke had no choice. He was able to gain a foothold in Morning Star Academy because of Zheng Dongsheng. This time, Zheng Dongsheng had come out to earn some extra money, and he was purely a follower. Now that this mess had arisen, the medicine sect could not solve it by themselves, and Zheng Dongsheng could not possibly step in personally. Who else could it be other than him? "So, you insist on being a lackey of the medicine sect." Lin Yi's originally calm expression became a bit more serious. In any case, he was the honorary dean of the Morning Star Academy. He did not want to damage the reputation of the Morning Star Academy because of this kind of thing, but if the other party refused to listen, then there was no other way. "Kid, you better watch your mouth. Originally, I was only prepared to stop when the time was right, but if you really don't know what's good for you and provoke me, in the end, you will be the one to suffer. If you know what's good for you, hurry up and apologize. Let me give you a piece of advice. Don't make a mistake." Zhao Yuke said with an unkind expression, "Hee, I'll pass this on to you. Seeing that you are from the Morning Star Academy, I don't want to hurt you, so I can let you go." Linny shook his head lightly and said, "Don't want to hurt me? Ha 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 ha. You're quite an interesting kid. You're not very strong, but you're very good at acting tough. A profound ascending primary stage actually wants to let me, a profound ascending middle stage, go in front of so many people, such big words really come out of your mouth. Zhao Yukei laughed. You don't believe me? In any case, you are from the East Continent. Is it strange for you to challenge someone of a higher level? Lin Yi looked at him with a smile that was not a smile. That's right, this kind of thing is indeed very common in the East Continent, where geniuses gather. But is this the East Continent? Humph, don't you think carefully before trying to scare people? Or are you also from the East Continent? Zhao Yukei looked up and down at Lin Yi and said, Chapter 4980. What do you mean? Are you a disciple of the Morning Star Academy? Zhao Yukei was slightly surprised. This kind of thing was not impossible. This person was a rare, profound ascending stage expert of Middle Island. And with one glance he could recognize that he was from the Morning Star Academy. Combining these two conditions, the possibility of this guy being a disciple of the Morning Star Academy was not low. It was already embarrassing enough for him to be a thug for the medicine sect. If he were to go against a disciple of the Morning Star Academy, how would he be able to stand in the Morning Star Academy in the future? I am a friend of your dean, Ling Yuanqing, and also the master of your chief alchemist, Qing Danzi. What do you think? Lin Yi said lightly. Ha 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 ha. Zhao Yukei suddenly rolled on the ground laughing, as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. He pointed at Lin Yi and said breathlessly, If you say you are a disciple of the Morning Star Academy, then at least you have some credibility. Maybe I will really believe it. I didn't expect you to be such an interesting person. You are actually a friend of our dean and the master of Qing Danzi. You should have a limit to your nonsense, right? Not only Zhao Yukei, but the surrounding people also felt that it was too ridiculous. Even if they did not know much about the Morning Star Academy, they at least knew what the dean and the chief alchemist represented. This person in charge of the Tiandan Pavilion was really good at boasting. I have already said what I need to say. I advise you to turn around and leave now. I can pretend that I have never seen you. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless. Lin Yi's expression was still calm as usual. He did not care about the people's sarcasm at all. Ha, you don't have to give me any face. However, seeing as you've spent so much effort to make up such a ridiculous lie, I can give you some face. At the very least, I can guarantee that I won't beat you to death. Zhao Yukei laughed unscrupulously. If that is the case, then there is nothing else to say. Lin Yi smiled helplessly. He had just come out of the Morning Star Academy, but he turned around and wanted to attack the Chancellor of the Morning Star Academy. He was really the only honorary dean like this. You are still pretending at this time? Kid, are you addicted to acting tough? Let me wake you up. Zhao Yukei sneered and was about to attack Lin Yi. However, before he could make a move, Lin Yi had already appeared within 10 feet in front of him in a flash. Lin Yi's ghost-like speed had startled him, a mysterious ascendant middle stage master. Before he could react, he received a heavy blow on his chest. His entire body flew out uncontrollably on the spot, and he was kicked out of the market street by Lin Yi. Hiss! The audience gasped one after another, and everyone looked at Lin Yi as if they were looking at a monster. This was a great expert of the profound ascension middle stage. How could he not even last one move in front of the owner of the Tiandan Pavilion? Could it be that he was the kind of trash who only had a level but no strength? Let's go in. Lin Yi turned his head and called out to Tian Chan and the others as if nothing had happened. With his current strength, he didn't need to use his trump cards to deal with ordinary profound ascension middle stage experts. Any combination of 3 attribute martial techniques was enough. Oh, Tian Chan and the others looked at each other and nodded in a daze. They had always known that Lin Yi was powerful, and it was common for him to challenge someone of a higher level. But even if it was the same level, the difficulty of the profound ascension stage was at least 10 times higher than the nascent soul stage. Not to mention, looking at Lin Yi's calm manner, he didn't even put the opponent of the profound ascension middle stage in his eyes. Just how strong was he? The Tiandan Pavilion is really unfathomable. The onlookers were completely stirred up at this moment. Although doing business was not directly related to strength, in this world where the weak were prey to the strong, people were still subconsciously more willing to believe those who were strong. At least their words were more reliable and more secure. Lin Yi had only arrived here for less than 2 hours. First, he slapped away the late nascent soul stage, Jiao Huanshan, and now he kicked away the profound ascension middle stage, Zhao Yuke. His strength was simply so strong that it made people's hair stand on end. It was equivalent to advertising for the Tiandan Pavilion twice. Not only did it not lose its popularity, it increased a lot. It was human nature to worship the strong. Since the Heavenly Dan Pavilion had such a valiant person in charge, it was naturally full of gimmicks. Many of the people who gathered here from all directions just wanted to catch a glimpse of this expert. As long as they were guided a little, these people would all become ready-made customers. Outside the market street, a miserable figure climbed up from the messy garbage heap. It was Zhao Yuke, who was kicked away by Lin Yi. For the sake of the Morning Star Academy, Lin Yi still left some leeway. Otherwise, he would have long been a corpse that no one cared about. But even so, Zhao Yuke still suffered quite a heavy injury. His heart was filled with shock, and he was starting to believe that Lin Yi had some sort of relationship with Morning Star Academy. After all, there weren't many geniuses at the profound ascension stage who could still easily challenge those of a higher level. Only in the East Continent were they more common. Limping back to the famous medicine sect, Tong Yangsuo was accompanying Zheng Dongxing to drink tea. When the two saw Zhao Yuke's appearance, they were shocked. Jiao Huanshan was like this before. Why was he, a profound ascension middle stage master, still like this? What's going on? Could it be that even you are not a match for that Lin Yi? Zheng Dongxing frowned and said angrily. He was just boasting to Tong Yangsuo that with Zhao Yuke's strength, it would be a piece of cake. Who would have thought that this would be the result? It was like slapping his own face in front of Tong Yangsuo. No wonder he was angry. Master Zheng, I am incompetent. I am indeed not a match for him. Zhao Yuke said in shame. How could this be? Didn't Jiao Huanshan just say that Lin Yi is only at the early stage of the profound ascension stage? With the strength of you, Chancellor Zhao, who is at the middle stage of the profound ascension stage, you can't deal with him? Could it be that Jiao Huanshan was wrong about this bastard who can't do anything right? Tong Yangsuo's face darkened. He had never looked at the Tiandan Pavilion in the eyes. These 2 years, he did not dare to act rashly because of the deterrence of the will of heaven. Now that the will of heaven had left, and he had invited experts like Zheng Dongsheng and Zhao Yuke from the East Continent, dealing with a mere Tiandan Pavilion should be a piece of cake. How could there be so many twists and turns? Chapter 49:81. There's such a thing. Zheng Dongsheng and Tong Yangsuo were both shocked. If it was just Zhao Yuke's defeat, they would not be so shocked, but Zhao Yuke was defeated by someone 2 levels higher than him. This meant that the opponent was no small matter. Not only that, the kid also said. Zhao Yuke grinned awkwardly. What else did he say? Tong Yangsuo quickly asked. He also said that he had some connections with our Morning Star Academy. Zhao Yuke said with a strange expression. Connections? What connections? Could he be a disciple of our Morning Star Academy? Zheng Dongxing's eyelids twitched. Many people on Middle Island had studied in the East Continent Academy, so it was not impossible to encounter such a coincidence. That's not it. He said he was a friend of Dean Ling Yuanqing and the master of Grandmaster Qing Danzi. Zhao Yuke braced himself and said, "What?" Zheng Dongsheng was so shocked that his jaw dropped. He quickly reacted and frowned. "That's impossible. As far as I know, Qing Danzi's master died a long time ago. How could he appear here?" In the world of cultivation, it was not good to judge a person by their appearance. No matter how young they looked, they could be old monsters who had lived for hundreds or thousands of years. They just maintained their youthful appearance, just like Zhuang Yifan. But this guy claimed to be Qing Danzi's master. That was pure nonsense. That's right. Such shameless boasting. This person must be a liar. Tong Yongsua, who was at the side, quickly asserted, even if it was possible, he had to immediately dispel Zheng Dongxing's suspicions. Otherwise, if Lin Yi really was Ling Yuanqing's friend, Qing Danzi's master, then what was the point of fighting for the medicine sect? If that was really the case, then he might as well not do anything else. He could only hurry to the Heavenly Dan Pavilion and personally apologize. There was no other choice. Zhao Yuke did not speak. Of course, he did not believe Lin Yi's nonsense. But with the strength Lin Yi had displayed, he was definitely not an ordinary disciple of the Morning Star Academy. Maybe he really did know Ling Yuanqing and Qing Danzi, which was why he was so unscrupulous. There's no doubt about it. Humph, this kid is trying to play tricks on our Morning Star Academy. He's really a weirdo. Zheng Dongsheng snorted disdainfully in front of the number 2 pill refiner of the Morning Star Academy. What was the difference between this and running to hell and pretending to be a ghost? This is too much. Grandmaster Zheng, what do you think we should do next? We can't just let this brat wantonly tarnish the reputation of your Morning Star Academy, right? Tong said with anticipation. Although I don't really care about the reputation of the Morning Star Academy, we really can't ignore this kid. Otherwise, people will think that we're afraid of him, and maybe they'll treat him as some big shot. Zheng Dongsheng frowned slightly. That's right. 2 of us have already been killed by him. We can't continue to encourage his arrogance. It's a pity that our medicine sect's guest experts on Middle Island aren't strong enough. We still have to trouble Master Zheng to think of a way. Tong Yangsu quickly said. The guest experts on his side were at most in the nascent soul stage. Their strength might not be comparable to Jiao Huanshan's, let alone dealing with Lin Yi. Only Zheng Dongsheng could deal with this matter. Of course, Zheng Dongsheng was a pill refiner and was not good at fighting. However, with his superior status, he did not need to deal with this kind of matter personally. As long as he sent someone to spread the word, there would naturally be a large number of experts rushing over like ducks. A mere Lin Yi would not be a problem at all. Since this Lin Yi can fight an opponent who is a higher level than him, he's really not weak. We can't underestimate him too much. I'm afraid ordinary experts won't be able to deal with him. Zheng Dongsheng pondered for a moment and then said, how about this? Let's not act rashly. When the time comes, we'll let Deputy Island Master Wu deal with him. Deputy Island Master Wu? Tong Yangsua was stunned, and he said in surprise, is this Deputy Island Master Wu that Master Zheng mentioned, the Executive Deputy Island Master Wu Miao, who suddenly rose to power last year? The power of Middle Island's Island Master Cabinet had always been divided among 5 people, namely 1 Island Master and 4 Deputy Island Masters. The actual power of the Deputy Island Master was the greatest among the 4 Deputy Island Masters. Basically, he could have a say in all matters, big or small. In terms of power and status, he was only below the island master. He could be considered as the number 2 figure in the official forces of Middle Island. Although the Wu Miao that Tong Yangsuo mentioned was very experienced in the Island Master Pavilion, he had always kept a low profile. In terms of presence, he was even less prominent than the Will of Heaven. After all, although the Will of Heaven's strength was low on the surface, he was a legendary figure that everyone knew. Moreover, he was a strong person, and his true strength was not weak even in the Island Master Pavilion. However, this Wu Miao was not really incompetent. He was just hiding his strength. Last year, when the Island Master Pavilion elected a new executive deputy island master, he, who had never been looked upon favorably by the outside world, suddenly made a move and became a medium-sized dark horse. That's right. That's him. Zheng Dongsheng nodded. He is the number 2 official of Middle Island. Even deputy island masters like the Will of Heaven and Chu Wentian are overshadowed by him. Also, I heard that he has always kept people at arm's length, and very few people can befriend him. Master Zheng actually managed to invite him. Tong Yangsuo was even more astonished. The Chamber of Commerce had always been very attentive to the Island Master Pavilion's officials. Even if they could not become their own people, they had to befriend them. At the very least, they could not allow them to become obstacles. Otherwise, it would be difficult for them to do business. Tong Yangsuo had put in a lot of effort in this regard, especially the newly promoted executive deputy island master, Wu Miao. She was an important person that he did his best to befriend. Unfortunately, Wu Miao had always been indifferent toward him. At most, she would give him some gifts during the holidays. She did not even have the right to enter his house. That's right. Deputy Island Master Wu is indeed aloof and arrogant. However, don't forget my status, Shopkeeper Tong. Other people can only beg him, but he has to beg me. I'm his distinguished guest, said Zheng Dongsheng with a proud laugh. That's right. Master Zheng, a high-rank pill refiner, like you has an extraordinary status no matter where you go. Ordinary people can't even invite you. No matter how aloof and arrogant Wu Miao is, he will definitely receive pills. Tong Yangsuo smiled apologetically. Chapter 4982. This was the advantage of being a pill refiner. Their statuses were very high, and even high and mighty figures had to humble themselves in front of high-ranking pill refiners like them. Zheng Dongsheng enjoyed this feeling the most. So that's how it is. It seems that Deputy Island Master Wu still has a good eye, burning incense and praying to the Buddha. One is afraid of worshipping the wrong temple. However, Deputy Island Master Wu has really found the right person this time. With you, Grand Master Zheng, personally taking action, wouldn't refining pills be a piece of cake? Tong Yangsuo took the opportunity to flatter Zheng Dongsheng. It was no wonder Zheng Dongsheng agreed to help so easily. In the past, it would have been very difficult to get this great person to help, no matter how high the price was. Zheng Dongsheng laughed heartily. He enjoyed Tong Yangsuo's flattery very much. After some thought, he said, "How about this? I'll write a letter to Deputy Island Master Wu personally. Shopkeeper Tong, get someone to deliver it to him. He will definitely come." "Okay, thank you, Master Zheng." Tong Yangsuo was elated. Although Lin Yi was unexpectedly strong, if he could get Wu Miao to help, a mere Lin Yi would be nothing. While Zheng Dongsheng and Tong Yangsuo were talking, Jiao Huanshan, who was limping like Zhao Yuke, suddenly came to the door with a bitter expression. "Why aren't you recuperating? Why are you here?" Tong Yangsuo frowned when he saw this. If Zhao Yuke, who came with Zheng Dongsheng, hadn't suffered a great loss, he wouldn't have treated this guy nicely. After all, he had embarrassed himself in front of Zheng Dongsheng. Shopkeeper Tong, Master Zheng, bad news. Jiao Huanshan smiled bitterly. What bad news? Master Zheng and I are here. What can go wrong? Why are you so flustered? That's not proper. Tong Yangsuo reprimanded him. Shopkeeper Tong, it's really bad news. Someone just reported that Tiandan Pavilion has started to place orders for refining pills, and they're taking orders for 7th grade pills, said Jiao Huanshan. What? Tong Yangsuo and Zheng Dongsheng stood up in shock. It's true. Their Heavenly Elixir Pavilion has accumulated a lot of popularity over the past 2 years because of their high-quality elixirs. Their reputation has always been good. Their only weakness is that the grade of their elixirs is not high enough. But now, this weakness has become their strength. A 7th grade elixir. This is even better than our medicine sect, Jiao Huanshan said with a bitter face. It was rare for them to invite Zheng Dongsheng to take charge. The famous medicine sect had already overshadowed the Heavenly Dan Pavilion in terms of fame by announcing that they would be able to refine a 6th grade pill on the spot. Coupled with Jiao Huanshan's deliberate provocation, the two sects were like fire and water. Under the storm, they became the focus of public opinion. The famous medicine sect took this opportunity to gain a lot of attention and attracted a lot of people. However, now that the Heavenly Elixir Pavilion had spread the news of a 7th grade elixir, the popularity that the famous medicine sect had just attracted was instantly snatched away. Even the customers who had previously reserved the 6th grade elixir also canceled their subscriptions one after another. It was obvious that they had gone to the Heavenly Elixir Pavilion. They had worked so hard, but in the end, their hard work had gone to someone else. How could they endure this? Impossible. How can a small Tiandan Pavilion refine 7th grade pills? Tong Yangsuo's first reaction was disbelief. 7th grade alchemists were rare in these heaven stage islands. Even if there were 1 or 2, they would soon be poached by the East Continent colleges. How could a small pill shop like Tiandan Pavilion, which had no background, afford to raise a 7th grade alchemist? Even if they took out all their profits, it would be far from enough. Since he dared to say such things, it means that he does have the ability. Otherwise, he would be courting death. I don't think that Lin Yi is so stupid. Could it be that this Tiandan Pavilion also has a background in the East Continent? Zheng Dongsheng said thoughtfully. This was the only possibility he could think of. Tiandan Pavilion, like the medicine sect here, had spent a lot of money to invite a high-level alchemist like him. That was why they dared to say such arrogant words. That's impossible. I've spent a lot of effort to investigate the details of Tiandan Pavilion in the past 2 years. This is purely a small pill shop. It only has the background of the will of heaven. It has nothing to do with the East Continent, Tong Yangsuo said with certainty. Tiandan Pavilion was now a thorn in his side. If he hadn't investigated it clearly, he wouldn't have dared to let Jiao Huanshan come to provoke it. If that's the case, then we really have to think about it. Maybe there's a master behind it. Zheng Dongsheng frowned, and then said to Tong Yangsuo, "How about this? I don't need to write a letter. Manager Tong, you can directly bring my name card to invite Deputy Island Master Wu. There's no time to lose. Let's go now." Okay. Tong Yangsuo nodded repeatedly. Also, why don't you ask my cousin to come as well? One more person means one more force, Zheng Dongsheng added. This, Tong Yangsuo hesitated for a moment. The cousin Zheng Dongsheng mentioned was naturally the deputy hall master of the pill hall, Zheng Dongjue. On the surface, his relationship with the medicine sect and the 5 elements commerce had always been bad. Naturally, he didn't get along well with Zheng Dongjue, the person in charge of the pill hall. However, this was only on the surface. Zheng Dongsheng naturally knew about this. However, if he invited Wu Miao this time, it would definitely be suspicious if he invited Zheng Dongjue as well. There's nothing to hesitate about. Deputy Island Master Wu is someone we can trust. We have to let him know about this relationship sooner or later. Why don't we take this opportunity to confess in person? This way, we can leave a good impression of him. Just tell him that it's my idea. Dongjue won't object. Zheng Dongsheng instructed. Okay. Tong Yangsuo nodded and immediately went out to call for Wu Miao. An hour later, there were a few more VIPs in the medicine sect's VIP room. Zheng Dongsheng sat on the main seat, while his cousin Zheng Dongjue sat on his right. Tong Yangsuo sat next to Zheng Dongjue. On Zheng Dongsheng's left was a stern-looking man with a long beard. He was undoubtedly the new deputy island master of Middle Island, Wu Miao. However, there was an unexpected and uninvited guest sitting next to Wu Miao. It was Southern Aurora from Middle Island's Cultivators Academy, with Southern Polar Light strength and status. Even though he had lost the competition against Tianxing for the position of Deputy Island Master, he was still considered an extraordinary person. However, he had never had any dealings with the medicine sect, so Tong Yangsuo naturally would not specially invite him. The reason why he had appeared here this time was actually a coincidence. The reason was simple. When Tong Yangsuo went to invite Wu Miao, Southern Aurora happened to be there. When he heard that it was to deal with Tiandan Pavilion and Lin Yi, he immediately came on a whim to join in the fun. Chapter 4983. Master Zheng, you're being too polite. Since you summoned us personally, how could we not come? Wu Miao smiled faintly. Everyone nodded in agreement. Apart from Zheng Dongsheng, Wu Miao had the highest status among them. Only Zheng Dongjue, who was the person in charge of the pill hall, could stand on equal footing with her. As for people like Nantian Aurora and Tong Yangsuo, they could only suck up to her. Zheng Dongsheng laughed. He was very satisfied with everyone's attitude. I invited everyone here because Medicine Sect has encountered some difficulties and needs everyone's help to think of a solution. I heard it's about Tiandan Pavilion, asked Wu Miao. Tong Yangsuo had told her a little about it, but she did not know the specifics. That's right. This small Tiandan Pavilion isn't a big deal, so there's no need to mobilize so many people. However, Lin Yi from Tiandan Pavilion has returned. Furthermore, he brought Diao Huanshan and Zhao Yuke with him. Now, he even announced that he's selling 7th grade pills. He's really aggressive, said Zheng Dongsheng with a slight frown. 7th grade pills. Everyone was shocked. 7th grade pills were extremely rare even in the East Continent, let alone in Middle Island. Even Wu Miao, the managing deputy island master, was eager to get a 7th grade pill, let alone everyone else. Tiandan Pavilion has always been our medicine sect's sworn enemy. If they gain power, it will be a huge blow to our medicine sect. That's why I implore everyone to help us. Medicine sect will definitely reward you handsomely, said Tong Yangsuo sincerely. I heard that Tiandan Pavilion is backed by the will of heaven. Is that true? Asked Wu Miao. That's right. That's true. Tong Yangsuo nodded. In that case, I really have to help medicine sect. Although the will of heaven is my colleague, he's arrogant and despotic. I'm sure Tiandan Pavilion is using his name to commit crimes. Otherwise, how could they have grown so much in just 2 years? Who would believe that they aren't involved in some shady business? Said Wu Miao gloomily. That's right. Deputy Island Master Wu is right. Tong Yangsuo was elated. In his opinion, Tiandan Pavilion would be doomed as long as Wu Miao agreed to help. Deputy Island Master Wu, if you don't mind, feel free to let me know. I'm more than happy to help you deal with Tiandan Pavilion, interjected Nantian Aurora. Oh, Deputy Dean Nantian is also interested. Tong Yangsua was delighted. The will of heaven is arrogant and despotic. Deputy Island Master Wu isn't the only one who doesn't get along with him. Don't forget that I fought with him 2 years ago for the position of Deputy Island Master. Furthermore, I also have a grudge against Tiandan Pavilion's Lin Yi. This time, I can teach him a lesson. Nantian Aurora sneered. Very good. It seems like Deputy Dean Nantian is also a kindred spirit. Deputy Island Master Wu, you're in the wrong. Why didn't you introduce such a good friend to us earlier? If he didn't happen to be a guest at your residence, I'm afraid we wouldn't have had the chance to get to know each other. It's a pity we didn't meet sooner. Zheng Dongxing took the opportunity to win Nantian Aurora's heart. It was true that alchemists had a transcendent status, but at the same time, they relied on a wide range of connections to live comfortably. Nantian Aurora was also a #1 figure in this middle island. This time, they had a common enemy, so their relationship was naturally closer. Being able to sit together and speak the same language, they were ready-made friends. Grandmaster Zheng is indeed a person who makes friends. I feel the same way. You're famous in the alchemy world. I only regret that I never had the chance to meet you. Today, I've finally fulfilled one of my wishes. Nantian Aurora took the opportunity to flatter Zheng Dongsheng. How can it be called famous? It's just an undeserved reputation. Deputy Dean Nantian, you flatter me. Zheng Dongsheng laughed and asked, from what you said just now, could it be that you competed with the will of heaven for the position of Deputy Island Master 2 years ago? Yes, but I had just advanced to the mysterious Ascension early stage at that time. My strength had not yet stabilized, so I failed at the last moment. Nantian Aurora smiled bitterly. What about now? Since the will of heaven has gone to the East Continent, his position as Deputy Island Master has been vacated, right? Zheng Dongxing turned to look at Wu Miao. As the Executive Deputy Island Master, Wu Miao had the most say in this matter. Nantian Aurora's eyes lit up when he heard this. The reason why he had visited Wu Miao today was because of this matter. If he could get some help from Wu Miao, he might be able to regain the opportunity to compete for the position of Deputy Island Master. Master Zheng is right. The Island Master Pavilion must have 1 Island Master and 4 Deputy Island Masters. This is a rule that has been passed down since ancient times. No one can make an exception. It would be fine if he only left for a month or 2, but this time, the will of heaven is going to the distant East Continent. Moreover, it is a dangerous mission to charge into the mysterious Ascension realm. Who knows if he can come back alive? Wu Miao sneered. He had never been on good terms with the will of heaven. Of course, he could not wait for the will of heaven to be struck to death by the lightning tribulation. Even if the lightning tribulation did not kill him, given the will of heaven's domineering personality, it would be easy for him to stir up trouble in the East Continent, where there were many experts. If he offended a powerful person, it would be hard for the will of heaven not to die. In other words, the Island Master Pavilion is missing one of the 5 Island Masters. Does that mean Deputy Dean Nantian has a chance? Zheng Dongsheng glanced at the restless Nantian Aurora with a smile. You can say that. After the Island Master Pavilion's discussion, the will of heaven's position as Deputy Island Master is temporarily vacant. If he can rush back to Middle Island in a short time, he will still have a chance. However, if he returns late and the position is taken by someone else, he will have nothing to say. This is a rare opportunity. Deputy Dean Nantian can indeed fight for the position. Wu Miao nodded. If I can fight for the position of Deputy Island Master, I will definitely follow Deputy Island Master Wu's lead. Nantian Aurora hurriedly expressed his loyalty. As the Executive Deputy Island Master, Wu Miao's authority in this matter was second only to the island master. She was the person he needed to win over the most. As long as Wu Miao was willing to agree, coupled with the power behind him, he would have at least a 70% chance of winning. As for the island master, who had more authority, Nantian Aurora had a say in this matter. It was a pity that the island master he had tried so hard to befriend happened to be in seclusion. Now, another powerful person was in charge of the island master's authority. Nantian Aurora couldn't even meet that powerful person, so he naturally couldn't do anything about it. Therefore, he placed all his hopes on Wu Miao. He never expected Zheng Dongshen to support him when they first met. Furthermore, it seemed like Wu Miao was very obedient to Zheng Dongshen. This was a pleasant surprise. Chapter 4984. Acting Deputy Island Lord. Nantian Aurora was stunned. That's right. After all, the will of heaven just left not long ago. If we give his position to someone else now, I'm afraid there will be criticism. However, it's reasonable if it's just the acting Deputy Island Lord. Wu Miao stroked her long beard with one hand and said confidently, "You are the Cultivator College's Deputy Dean and competed with the will of heaven for the position of Deputy Island Lord, so you are the best candidate. I believe the Island Lord Pavilion won't have any objections as long as I suggest it. Among them, only Chu Wentian is close to the will of heaven. However, he's gone, so I believe he won't be so stupid as to oppose me. MHM, I also ask someone to investigate privately. Chu Wentian and the will of heaven only seem to be on good terms, but they don't have a deep relationship. After all, they are both influential figures. It's impossible for him to offend the executive deputy island lord for the sake of the East Continent's the will of heaven, unless he's out of his mind." Nantian Aurora nodded. "Don't worry about the others. The only person who might object to this is the acting island lord, given his strength and background. If he says no, I'm afraid even I won't be able to help Brother Nantian." Wu Miao frowned. After all, the acting island lord isn't the real island lord. Furthermore, he's new here, so I'm afraid he doesn't have as much authority as you, the executive deputy island lord. How can he have that much influence? Zheng Dongshen couldn't help feeling puzzled. "Master Zheng, you might not know this, but even though he's the acting island lord, his strength and background are extraordinary. Vice island lords like us have no choice but to bow our heads and listen to him. To put it bluntly, the position of the island lord of Middle Island is very important to us, but that person doesn't necessarily care about it. He's just here to handle some errands. I don't think he'll agree to be the island lord of Middle Island for decades, or even centuries," said Wu Miao with a bitter smile. "Could he be someone from one of those super aristocratic families?" Zheng Dongshen was shocked. "That's right, and he's a member of the Middle Island Elder Council. We don't dare to ask too much about him, but we do know that he's from a powerful family. Otherwise, why would they give him the position of acting island lord without even giving us a chance to discuss it?" Wu Miao shook her head. As the managing vice island lord, he had the highest chance of becoming the acting island lord. However, no one expected such a ruthless person to appear out of nowhere. Wu Miao and the other vice island lords didn't even have a chance to do anything, and could only obey orders. If that's the case, then it really depends on luck. Since he's someone from a super family, even I might not be able to speak to him. Zheng Dongxing shook his head and sighed, not to mention him, the number 2 pill refiner of the Morning Star Academy. Even the number 1 pill refiner, Qing Danzi, could not enter the eyes of the aristocratic families. What should we do? Nantian Aurora's heart sank. This was an extremely rare opportunity. He had to seize the position of Vice Island Lord while the will of heaven wasn't around. Otherwise, Once the will of heaven returned, he would have nothing to do with it. Therefore, he was determined to get the position. Otherwise, why would he lower himself to fawn over Wu Miao? Brother Nantian, you don't have to be so worried. I'm just saying that there's a possibility, but in reality, the possibility isn't high. The high and mighty acting island lord took office alone and didn't bring any trusted aides with him, so he probably won't be interested in the position of vice island lord. After considering all aspects, Brother Nantian is the most suitable candidate. He has no reason to object, so the position of vice island lord is very likely to go to you, Wu Miao said with a smile. After Nantian, Aurora became the vice island lord. He would have one more person on his side in the Island Lord Pavilion. Naturally, his authority would be greater. After he got rid of the remnants of the will of heaven's forces, the Island Lord Pavilion would be under his control, apart from the high and mighty acting Island Lord. If he encountered a suitable opportunity, he might even be able to dream about the position of Island Lord. Haha, this is great news. Let's get a vice island lord first. After a few months, the word vice island lord will be removed. It seems like we can call him vice island lord Nantian in advance, Zheng Dongsheng said with a smile. Thank you, Master Zheng and vice island lord Wu, for your support. I can't thank you enough, and we'll never forget it. Nantian Aurora was overjoyed. He was originally a little uncertain, but after listening to Wu Miao's analysis, he immediately felt much more assured. Brother Nantian, we'll all be on the same side in the future. There's no need to be so courteous. As long as we cooperate sincerely, Central Island will be ours sooner or later, Wu Miao said ambitiously. Great. Vice Island Lord Wu is indeed someone who's going to break through to the magnate stage. Your ambition and boldness are indeed extraordinary, Zheng Dongsheng praised. Then he said, however, capable people have more work. You can't just focus on Vice Dean Nantian. We still need you to deal with Tiandan Pavilion. That's easy. It's just Tiandan Pavilion. I can get it with just a word, but... Wu Miao suddenly paused. But what? Tong Yangsua asked hurriedly. I heard that Tiandan Pavilion is related to the Pill Hall. Is that true, Vice Hall Master Zheng? Wu Miao looked at Zheng Dongjue, who was silent. Ever since Zheng Dongjue arrived, apart from greeting them at the beginning, he hadn't said a word. No one knew if it was because of his position or if he was pretending to be profound. Zheng Dongjue nodded when he heard Wu Miao's question. It's true. Tiandan Pavilion's Tian Chan is a disciple of my Pill Hall. Not only that, but she's also my granddaughter-in-law. However, my grandson died young, so we're a little estranged. Everyone fell silent, especially Tong Yangsua, who was extremely embarrassed. They were actually discussing how to deal with Zheng Dongjue's granddaughter-in-law in front of him. He was speechless and ashamed. No wonder Zheng Dongjue had been silent all this while. Everyone, please don't misunderstand. Actually, I don't object to your plan to deal with the Heavenly Dan Pavilion. Although Tian Chan is the granddaughter-in-law of the Zheng clan, she has been entangled with Lin Yi. She should have been taught a lesson a long time ago. It's just that as an elder, it's not appropriate for me to do it personally, Zheng Dongjue clarified. Zheng Dongjue was happy to see everyone plan to deal with Tiandan Pavilion. Previously, he didn't dare to force Tian Chan too much because of the will of heaven's deterrence. Now that the will of heaven was gone and they destroyed Tiandan Pavilion, he could naturally summon Tian Chan back to the Pill Hall. Zheng Tianchu had been bothering him about this for the past 2 years, so he had been thinking about it for a long time. You're tuning in to the Mystic Fist YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.